Chapter 1776. Murong Fu was taken aback. He did not expect such a turn of events. If no one came to testify, they would not have a legitimate reason for coming here. Moreover, they had injured quite a number of people just now. Although they were not afraid of these people taking revenge, it was still far from the goal of subduing them. Song Qingshu reacted quickly. Heavenly Mountain Elders' martial arts are unfathomable. You might have a sliver of hope by relying on your numbers. Aren't you just sending Cave Master in, Elder Wu, and Duanmu Yuan into the tiger's den? Cave Master N's greatest characteristic was that he stuttered. However, no one dared to mock him because he was the number 1 elite of the 36 caves and 72 islands. Elder Wu's martial arts might not be as good as Cave Master N's, but it was not that far off. He was one of the best among them. However, in the original work, Shuju was unwilling to kill, so Heavenly Mountain Elder forced him to catch a deer to drink its blood to cultivate. Sang Tu Gong then explained. Some time ago, Heavenly Mountain Elder summoned us to Western Xia to help Li Liangzhu deal with the elites of Class 1 Hall. We naturally did not dare to not come. We thought that would be a fierce battle and many would die here. However, we did not expect Li Liangzhu to have such foresight and incite the elites of Class 1 Hall to rebel. In the end, we obtained victory without bloodshed. Murong Fu nodded to himself. He had participated in this matter as well. Naturally, he knew that the entire process was daunting but not dangerous. Sang Tu Gong continued. After settling the matter, Heavenly Mountain Elder brought her subordinates and left Lingzhou City in a hurry. She also sent people to dismiss us, telling us to return to our own territories. Naturally, we were extremely afraid. Song Qingshu asked curiously. It's fine if you were by her side. But why were you afraid when she asked you to return? Sang Tu Gong smiled bitterly. Mr. Mu, you might not know this, but if Heavenly Mountain Elder sent someone to scold us every year, we would be considered to have passed the difficult period of the year. On the island in the cave, there would always be a banquet for several days to celebrate our safety. Sigh, it is really despicable to be like this. If Heavenly Mountain Elder's messenger did not scold us and scold our 18 generations of ancestors, we would not have a good life in the future. You should know that if she doesn't send someone to scold you, she'll send someone to beat you. If you're lucky, it'll be 30 strokes of the rod. As long as your leg isn't broken, she'll probably throw a banquet to celebrate. Sang Tu Gong paused for a moment before continuing. If she does not order people to come and beat our buttocks with big sticks, she will often use python whips to whip our backs, or else she will hammer a few nails into our backs. Sima Island Master, please let these friends take a look at the scars caused by the python whip. An old man who was as thin as a match said, "We are ashamed, ashamed." He untied his clothes, revealing 3 vertical, 3 horizontal, and 9 crisscrossing bright red marks on his back. Anyone who saw it would feel nauseous. One could imagine how much pain the old man must have been in when he suffered those marks. A dark-skinned man shouted, "What's the big deal? Please look at the bone-piercing nail on my back." Untying his clothes, he saw 3 big iron nails nailed to his back. The nails were yellow with rust. Obviously, they had been there for a long time. For some reason, this black man did not try to take them out. Another monk said in a hoarse voice, "I am afraid Cave Master Yu's suffering is even worse than Xiao Seng's." He reached out to untie his monk's robe. Everybody saw a slender iron chain pierced through his shoulder blade. The iron chain went all the way down and pierced through his wrist bone. His wrist only needed to move slightly to affect his shoulder blade. The pain was unimaginable. Song Qingshu was startled. Although he knew early on that Tianshan Tong Granny was very strict, and these people were not good people, so being a little bit harsh to them could be considered as their punishment, but seeing it with his own eyes, he was still somewhat shocked. Thinking about Tianshan Tong Granny's harmless appearance, he really could not associate her with the image of someone who committed these atrocities. Murong Fu angrily said, "Rebel, rebel." Unexpectedly, there is such a treacherous and ruthless person in the world. Zaixia is determined to help. Let us work together as one to eliminate this big scourge of the Walin world. How much of what he said was out of righteous indignation, and how much of it was out of selfishness, nobody knew. Sang Tu-gong was greatly delighted. "Thank you very much, Prince Murong, for your righteous help. Among us who are gathered here, there is not one person who has not been bullied and tormented by Tong Granny. When we say 10,000 immortals assembly, that is just sticking gold on our faces. When we say 100 ghosts assembly, that is more worthy of a name. The days we have been living these past few years, I am afraid even the ghosts suffering in the hell of Avicii are no better than this. In the past, everybody was afraid of her ruthless methods, so we could only swallow our anger and suffer in silence. Luckily, Laotian has eyes. This old thief granny has been tyrannical all her life, but now she also has bad luck." Murong Fu's heart was moved. "You say this old woman finally has bad luck. What do you think?" Sang Tu-gong explained, "A few days ago, Tong Granny told us to go back to our own homes. Everybody felt uneasy, so they elected me, Big Brother Wu, Heavenly Wind Cave's Cave Master, and Scarlet Flame Cave's Cave Master Duanmu, Seahorse Island's Island Master Chin, and 9 others to buy pearls and jewels, silks and satins, exotic delicacies, rouge and pollen, and send them to her to please her." Murong Fu asked curiously, "Is this old woman an old demon? She's a granny. Why does she still use rouge and pollen?" Even though they had seen Tong Granny before in the palace, at that time, Tong Granny's entire body was wrapped in a black gown, so naturally they couldn't see her face clearly. As for her figure, even though she looked petite and dainty, no one thought in that direction. They only thought that she was old and had become stooped, so she looked small. Sang Tu-gong explained, "Old thief granny is old, but she has quite a number of maids and servants under her. Among them, the young women need to use rouge and pollen. It's just that there is not a single man on the peak, so who are they dressing up for?" Hearing his ridicule, Song Qingshu couldn't help laughing. Men naturally couldn't understand the nature of a woman's love for beauty. He didn't expect the women of later generations to be like this, and the women of hundreds of years ago were also like this. It really was a universal truth. Sang Tu-gong said, "I, Cave Master and Big Brother Wu and the others went to Tong Granny's residence to ask for an audience. The 9 of us were extremely afraid. 3 years ago, the old thief granny ordered us to prepare a complete set of medicines. Some of them were really too rare, like the eggs of a 300-year-old sea turtle and 5 feet long antlers. In addition, she summoned us early this time, so we didn't have enough time. We didn't prepare everything according to her instructions, so we expected that we would be punished severely this time. Who knew that after the 9 of us handed over the goods while trembling with fear, the old thief granny sent someone to pass a message, saying, 'The purchased goods are fine, but you 9 sons of Asterisk cheese, quickly tuck your tails between your legs and scram.' We were really overjoyed, as if we had been granted amnesty by the emperor. We immediately descended the peak, all of us wanting to leave as soon as possible so that the old thief granny wouldn't find out that there was something wrong with the goods. If she pursued the matter, we would suffer a great punishment. After the 9 of them left, they pulled off the black cloth covering their eyes and saw that 3 people had died in the nearby river. Cave Master recognized one of them. He was an expert from the Xixia country's first-class hall, called Taoist Joey. Murong Fu raised his eyebrows. This Taoist Joey was the old concubine's trusted aide. His thunderclap above the 9th heaven martial arts skill was very impressive. I didn't expect him to die just like that. The 2 of them were both from the Xixia country's first-class hall, so they naturally knew each other. They knew that although their martial arts were superior to each other's, it was not by much. Sang Tu-gong continued, "The strange thing is that Taoist Joey had 2 sword wounds on his body. You should know that Heavenly Maiden's martial arts are unfathomable, and it is said that she doesn't need a second move to kill someone." Murong Fu didn't think much of it. It wasn't as if he hadn't seen Heavenly Maiden in action in the Imperial Palace. She said that she didn't need a second move to kill someone, but she used almost 20 moves to kill Ding Chunxiu. But on second thought, Ding Chunxiu was a big shot in the underworld. He was a master in Jianghu, and he was good at using poison. No matter where he went, people would be scared. Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao could kill him within 20 moves. Although it was a sneak attack, Ding Chuanxiu was a cunning man. He never let his guard down. He remembered that he had fought with Ding Chuanxiu a few days ago. Although he was not afraid of him, it was impossible for him to defeat him. Moreover, Ding Chuanxiu was good at using poison. Therefore, he chose to stay away from him when he saw him. He did not expect such a person to be easily killed by Tianshan Tong Lao. If it was him, wouldn't he only be able to block a dozen attacks? With this kind of martial art, he naturally didn't need a second move to kill these island masters and cave masters. Thinking of this, Morong Fu felt a little guilty. If he did not know that there was something wrong with Heaven Mountain Tong Lao's Kung Fu, he would definitely turn around and leave instead of getting involved in this mess. Sang Tu Gong continued. At that time, when we saw Daoist nine-winged with 2 injuries, we became suspicious. When we looked at the other 2 corpses, we saw that they weren't killed in 1 move. It was obvious that they had gone through a fierce battle and were covered in wounds. I immediately discussed this matter with Brother In, Brother Qin, and the others. This matter was really strange. Could it be that Daoist, 9-winged, and the other 2 weren't killed by Grandma Tong? But those women under Grandma Tong in Vulture Palace might not have the ability to kill Daoist, 9-winged, in 2 moves. Secondly, who would dare to steal Grandma Tong's pleasure of killing people in 1 move? Killing an expert like Daoist 9-winged was an endless joy. This kind of opportunity was not easy to come by. It was even more disrespectful than stealing Grandma Tong's delicious food. Our hearts were filled with suspicion. After we returned, we gathered together to discuss. Cave Master and suddenly said, Could it be that old madam is sick? Everyone immediately thought, everyone must die. No matter how skilled Grandma Tong is, she is not cultivated to the point of being immortal and has an indestructible body. This time, we didn't give her the complete offerings, but she didn't punish us. This is already strange. Daoist, 9-winged, and the others died nearby, and they had more than 1 injury on their bodies. This is even more suspicious. In short, there must be something very strange about this. The old hag has our life-death talismans in her hands. No one can resist. If she falls sick and dies, the life-death talismans will fall into the hands of another person. Won't we become the second-person slaves? In this lifetime, we will never be able to free ourselves. If that person is vicious and malicious, even more vicious than the old hag, won't the torment and humiliation we will suffer in the future be worse than today? This is really like an arrow on the bowstring. It has to be released. Knowing the dangers ahead, we can only seize this opportunity and fight to our deaths. Cave Master In, Boss Wu, and the rest will go to Vulture Palace to find out what's going on. We will gather our men here. Once we receive accurate information, we will attack together, kill the old hag, and take back the life-death talisman antidote. Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. He thought that if the little girl heard his subordinates calling her old hag and old hag, her expression would definitely be very interesting. Morong Fu felt relieved. When he heard Li Qinglu mention that Heaven Mountain Maiden's cultivation had problems, he was worried that she was lying to him. Now, according to these people's information, it seemed that she was right. Just as he was about to tell them what he knew, he suddenly had an idea. If I tell them now, they will succeed easily. They may not think of my benefits. It's better to pretend that I don't know and help them when they are most afraid. In this way, they will be grateful to me. But there is a problem. Mu Gaofeng knows about the dissipation of Tianshan girl's power. Glancing at the hunchback, Morong Fu's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. He reached out and slapped the hunchback's back. Chapter 1777. Before Morong Fu's palm energy could reach his body, Song Qingshu's Qi-Ji reacted naturally. He did not expect his opponent to suddenly launch a sneak attack, but after thinking about it, he understood the key point. Before coming here, his plan was to use Tianshan Tonglau's dispersing cultivation to incite the island masters and cave masters of the 36 caves and 72 islands to rebel. He was familiar with Duanmu Yuan, so he could be a referral. But now that these people had noticed something wrong with Tian Shan Tong Lao, the value of Mu Gaofeng's existence was greatly reduced. It was also possible that the matter of Tian Shan Tong Lao's dispersing cultivation would be leaked, causing Morong Fu to be unable to obtain the greatest benefits. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. Song Qing-shu's heart stirred, and he dispersed his counterattack, allowing his opponent to strike his back. Then, with a miserable scream, he fell to the ground, no longer breathing. The island masters and cave masters were also shocked. They did not expect that when they came together, they would kill each other. Someone could not help but ask, "What does Prince Morong mean by this?" Morong Fu did not answer. He first ran to Mu Gaofeng's body to check his breathing and pulse. After confirming that he was dead, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that when he struck Mu Gaofeng's body, the feeling was a little strange. He thought that something was wrong, but now it seemed that he was overthinking. Prince Morong, Mu Gaofeng is Island Master Duanmu's friend. You need an explanation. At this time, the others also spoke up. Morong Fu cupped his hands and said, "You may not know this, but this Mu Gaofeng is not only the Ming Tuo of Jianghu, but also a member of the Mu family of Xixia." Mu family? The Mu family of the great king of Tiandu? This group of people did not lack the local tyrants of Xixia, so someone immediately reacted. Yes, Morong Fu continued. Not long ago, Lilianzhua conferred the Mu family's eldest daughter as the future empress. So this Mu Gaofeng naturally became Lilianzhua's man. Tianshan Tong Lao and Lilianzhua are allies. If he goes back and leaks information, I guarantee that you will all die without a burial place. The group of people sucked in a breath of cold air. It's all thanks to Prince Morong's wisdom that we were saved from a great danger. It wasn't that no one had any doubts, especially considering that the two of them had obviously come together. But now that Mu Gaofeng was dead, and the one with the highest martial arts in the arena was Morong Fu, they wouldn't be stupid enough to openly oppose it. Song Qing-shu, who was in a state of suspended animation, sighed inwardly. This Morong Fu was indeed vicious and merciless, and he also had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Unfortunately, his vision was too narrow, and he was destined to be unable to achieve anything great. But this hunchback is Cave Master Duanmu's friend. When Duanmu Yuan returns, I'm afraid it will be hard to explain. Saying Earth Duke could not help but say, "It doesn't matter. When the time comes, I will naturally apologize to Cave Master Duanmu. Moreover, if he knows that Mu Gaofeng harbors ill intentions, I'm afraid that he will place righteousness before family," Morong Fu said with a stern expression. Everyone felt that his words were impeccable, and they all secretly nodded their heads. "Who wants to apologize to me?" Suddenly, a loud laugh came from afar. Immediately after, a black shadow flashed, and an old man with a big head appeared on the rock to the west. His big head was completely bald, without a single strand of hair. His face was extremely red, and from afar, he looked like a big ball of blood. Morong Fu's heart trembled. This person's martial arts are not weak. However, he was not very worried. His opponent's martial arts were not weak, but he was still quite a distance away from his own. Cave Master Duanmu. Someone had already bowed to him, and at the same time, pointed at the dead Mu Gaofeng and explained what had happened. Oh, something like this actually happened. Duanmu Yuan stood up and looked at Mu Gaofeng's corpse on the ground. A complicated expression flashed across his face. Since he endangered the lives of our brothers, then it's fine to kill him. Morong Fu could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Although he was not afraid of the other party, he did not want to cause any more trouble. Who knew that Duanmu Yuan would immediately say, "However, this stinky hunchback is my good friend. Now that he has been killed by Prince Morong, if I do not do anything and this news spreads to the pugilistic world, Duanmu Yuan, will not be able to live in this world anymore." I've heard that Gusum Murong's method of giving someone a taste of their own medicine is extremely miraculous. As long as you can withstand one of my attacks today, this matter will be over. As soon as he said the word over, he spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm, which shot towards Morong Fu's face. Morong Fu was originally sneering in his heart. He thought to himself, "You're just a cave master of a small island by the border, and yet you dare to speak so arrogantly. Even if we fight at full strength, you're not my match. Yet, you dare to say that I will let bygones be bygones if I can withstand one of your attacks. Do you think you're the heavenly mountain maiden?" However, he did not expect that the other party would attack as soon as he said so. Furthermore, it was such a despicable method of attack. He felt disgusted and hurriedly dodged to the side. Who knew that the thick phlegm that clearly flew past his ear would suddenly change direction and fly towards his face at an even faster speed? Morong Fu did not expect such an unforeseen turn of events. In a hurry, he could only use the iron bridge technique. His waist felt as if it was broken, and his entire body stiffly shortened, dodging the thick phlegm. Then, he rolled up his sleeves and used his inner energy to wrap around the phlegm before shooting it towards Duanmu Yuan. Duanmu Yuan was originally about to open his mouth to spit a second time, but he did not expect that the other party would actually retaliate with the phlegm. He happened to swallow it in one gulp and almost suffocated from the impact. Morong Fu was furious that this move was too sinister. If his martial arts reaction had been slightly slower, he would have been spat on his face. With his martial arts, he naturally would not have been in any danger, but if that happened, the Morong family would have lost all their face. Therefore, he did not show any mercy in his counterattack. When the surrounding people saw Duanmu Yuan swallow the phlegm, they could not help but swallow their saliva. Then, they felt a wave of nausea. It was really too disgusting. Stinking brat. Duanmu Yuan was also beaten senseless. When he recovered and saw the disdainful gazes of the surrounding people, he could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. "All right, when you walk the martial world, you must keep your word. Since I said one move, then one move." At this moment, a man dressed in black walked out of the forest. He wore a cloth scarf on his head and had a goatee on his face. When the crowd saw him, they all greeted Boss Wu. "Boss Wu, greetings, Boss Wu." Morong Fu frowned slightly. This person's aura and footwork were much more profound than Duanmu Yuan and sang two gongs. Furthermore, according to the words of those people just now, the one with the highest martial arts in this group was not him, but some cave master, and it looked like this group of people were truly hidden dragons and crouching tigers. However, he quickly became happy. The more powerful this group of people was, the more useful they would be after he subdued them. Suddenly, a clear voice came down from midair. "I didn't expect you to find an expert like Prince Morong. Your chances of success have increased by a few notches." Everyone raised their heads and looked towards the source of the voice. They saw a black-bearded Taoist standing at the top of a tree. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand. The branches under his feet bounced and sank, and he moved up and down according to the momentum, his expression carefree. Under the illumination of the lanterns, they could see that he was about 50 years old. He smiled and said, "Since we are all on the same side against a common enemy, why must we fight amongst ourselves and let that old hag benefit? Flood Dragon King, Taoist unjust." Someone had already recognized him. Morong Fu's heart skipped a beat. He had heard of this person's name before. He knew that he was a loose cultivator in the martial world. He did not know which sect he belonged to, but his martial arts were not ordinary. He was a rather famous expert from an evil sect. "Since Flood Dragon King has spoken, this old man has to give you face." Duanmu Yuan took the opportunity to back down. Morong Fu smiled faintly and could not be bothered to argue with him. Only then did Big Brother Wu introduce, "Taoist Unjust and a few other friends were also invited by me to help. There's also..." However, everyone was obviously impatient and did not have the leisure to listen to his rambling. Sang Tu Gong had always been on good terms with him. He rushed to speak first. "Big Brother Wu, what's the result of your investigation?" Hearing his question, the previously noisy crowd instantly quietened down. Everyone held their breath and focused their attention on Big Brother Wu and the others. They knew that his answer concerned the lives of thousands of people. Big Brother Wu revealed a joyful expression. Stroking his goatee, he smiled and said, "We secretly snuck into Old Lady Tong's residence and overheard the old hag's servant girls talking. We found out that the old hag was seriously ill and had gone out to gather herbs to seek treatment." When Big Brother Wu said this, the crowd immediately erupted in cheers. The news of Heaven Mountain Old Lady's illness was just a guess. Everyone had gathered here to discuss this matter. Now that Big Brother Wu had confirmed it, they were naturally overjoyed. It's just that we could not find a location of the life-death talisman. Just as Big Brother Wu finished speaking, the others also voiced their regrets. Murong Fu was stunned. What is the life-death talisman? He had vaguely heard of the reputation of this item and knew that it was a very powerful item. However, he had never seen it before. What it looked like, or even whether it was a hidden weapon or poison, he had no idea at all. He wanted to investigate it through these people. Big Brother Wu sighed and said, "It's a long story. I can't explain it to you in a short time. In short, the old hag has the life-death talisman in her hands. She can kill us anytime." He was unwilling to talk about the life-death talisman. He turned to the crowd and said in a clear voice, "The old hag is seriously ill. That is a fact. If we want to turn the situation around, we can only muster up our courage and fight with our lives." However, we did not find the old hag's whereabouts after investigating. Whether she has secretly returned to Misty Peak's Vulture Palace, we have no way of knowing. As for what to do from now on, we will have to discuss it. Especially Priest Booping, Prince Murong, if you have any brilliant ideas, please do not hesitate to enlighten us. Murong Fu smiled faintly. He had the intention to recruit these people for his own use, so he naturally had to show some of his abilities. "Brother Wu, the first thing we need to do in attacking Ethereal Peak is to know the actual situation in Spirit Vulture Palace. Brother Wu, since you didn't find the Heavenly Mountain Tonglao when you went to the old hag's place, we can capture a few maidservants and interrogate them. By then, we will know the current situation of the Vulture Palace and even where the Heavenly Mountain Tonglao is." Big Brother Wu and Priest Booping looked at each other. I am ashamed to say this. When we went to Tonglao's temporary residence to investigate, although we guessed that she was ill, no one dared to pry. Everyone tried their best to hide for fear of bumping into someone. However, I was still seen by a girl in the flower garden behind the palace. This girl seemed to be a maid. She suddenly raised her head. I could not dodge in time and came face to face with her. I was afraid that the secret would be leaked, so I rushed forward and used the capturing technique to capture her. If anyone has any questions about Vulture Palace, you can ask her. Big Brother Wu waved his hand. One of his subordinates carried a black cloth bag and walked forward, placing it in front of him. Big Brother Wu untied the rope at the mouth of the bag and pushed it down. A person appeared in the bag. "Ah!" Everyone cried out. They saw that the person was very small. It was a little girl. Big Brother Wu said proudly, "This girl was captured by me from the group of people for Vulture Palace." Everyone cheered in unison. "Big Brother Wu is amazing. You are really a hero. The immortals of the 36 caves and 72 islands are led by you, Big Brother Wu." Amidst the cheers, there were sounds of crying. The girl pressed her hands on her face and sobbed. Song Qing Shu, who was in a state of suspended animation, almost could not hold back his laughter. The Tianshan Tonglao that this group of people had always been afraid of was right before their eyes. They actually could not recognize her. However, what was even more hilarious was that the Tianshan Tonglao, who was previously high and mighty, was now stuffed into a cloth bag. She had no choice but to pretend to be a crying girl to get away with it. It seemed like there was a huge problem with her cultivation method. Chapter 1778. At this time, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was even younger than the last time he saw her. She looked like she was a lost child. "Who are you in Vulture Palace?" Murong Fu came before the little girl and looked down at her. The little girl covered her face and cried, not answering him. A trace of suspicion flashed through Murong Fu's mind. Why does this voice sound so mute? But he was worried that she was pretending. He continued asking, "Little girl, don't be afraid. What's your name?" The little girl put down her hands and blinked her big eyes. A few drops of tears hung on her long eyelashes. She looked so pitiful, but she still did not answer. Boss Wu panicked. They risked their lives to bring back a useless piece of trash. How embarrassing. He rushed over and shouted, "Don't pretend to be mute." What answered him was still the little girl's cries. Boss Wu flew into a rage out of humiliation. He rushed forward and grabbed the little girl's shoulder with his plier-like hands. He squeezed hard, trying to make her speak under the pain. The little girl was in so much pain that her tears kept falling, but she still kept making ah-ah sounds. Song Ching Shu couldn't help but admire Heaven Mountain Tong Lao's acting skills. She was obviously a hot-tempered person, but when she pretended to be a weak little girl, she was actually able to imitate it to perfection. However, she was probably already suppressing a towering rage in her heart, and once she recovered her powers, this Boss Wu would definitely die a horrible death. Taoist Booping also spoke. Even if you can't speak, you can still write. Hearing his words, someone had already prepared a pen and paper and placed it in front of the little girl. Taoist Booping squatted down and said in a pleasant tone, "Little girl, don't be afraid. Just write down everything you know, and we'll let you go." Murong Fu, who was standing at the side, curled his lips. These people were so afraid of Vulture Palace and Heaven Mountain Tonglao, and this little girl was from Vulture Palace. How would they dare to let her go? Words like this could only deceive a little girl. However, although he had seen through it, he had no intention to expose it. Firstly, he was now in the same boat with these island masters and cave masters, and secondly, those who wanted to achieve great things did not bother with trifles. As long as he could restore Great Yin to its former glory, sacrificing a little girl was nothing. Puzzled, the little girl picked up the pen and began to write on the paper. The people around her were delighted. Although they could not speak, they could write and take the opportunity to find out more about the Vulture Palace. One by one, they craned their necks to look at the paper. But soon after, they burst into laughter. It turned out that the little girl was crooked and didn't write any words. Instead, she made a mess of an ox's nose. Thinking of Taoist Booping's identity, she was clearly scolding him. Bastard! Taoist Booping was so angry that he directly took off his smiling mask and swept the horsetail whisk in his hand directly at the girl's face. If the whisk hit the girl, her brain would probably burst open and she would die. Song Ching Shu's heart skipped a beat. Of course, he did not want to see Heavenly Mountain Maiden die in front of him. Just as he was about to help, he realized that Murong Fu had pulled the little girl behind him. So, he gave up on the idea. "Prince Murong, what is the meaning of this?" Taoist Booping stared at Murong Fu with an unfriendly expression. Murong Fu smiled and said, "Please calm down, Taoist Booping. She's just a little girl. How could she write? At most, she knows some graffiti. I don't think she meant to offend you. Besides, it was not easy to capture a captive for Vulture Palace. It would be a pity to kill her just like that." The surrounding people nodded one after another. Each one of them praised. Murong Gongzi is right. Gongzi is right. Taoist Booping had calmed down by now. He nodded and said, "I was too impulsive just now. But I can see that this little girl is very evil. She might not be mute. Why don't we try again?" Big Brother Wu's suggestion was quickly echoed by the people around him. As the saying goes, water and fire are merciless. "Why don't we try with fire?" Murong Fu said. Hearing his words, everyone turned to look at him. This pretty boy looks like a gentleman, but when he wants to be ruthless, he can be so damn ruthless. The little girl turned around and looked at him deeply. But very quickly, she returned to her panicked, crying state. Soon, someone brought a torch. Big Brother Wu slapped the man and said, "This little girl is so small. Why are you holding such a thick stick? Are you trying to poke a hole in her? Give me a thin twig." Only then did the man hurriedly bring over a small burning twig. Duanmu Yuan took the twig and approached the little girl with a sinister smile. "Little girl, I don't care if you're pretending to be mute or not. If I poke you, your soft and tender skin will be damaged. In order to lessen the pain, you better speak obediently." The little girl's mouth was wide open. Her eyes were filled with fear, but she could only make these meaningless sounds. Then don't blame Uncle for being ruthless. In order to let her experience the torment of fear, Duanmu Yuan purposely lowered his hand and poked her body bit by bit. Seeing that the burning red twig was about to poke her body, a strange look flashed across the little girl's eyes. As a girl, she did not care, but it was a pity that she had lost all her skills. Although she could take Duanmu Yuan's life with her experience and techniques, coupled with the fact that the other party was unprepared, there were so many people around. If she made a move, it would mean that everything would be over. But if she did not make a move and her skin was damaged, Heaven Mountain Maiden bit her lip and fell into a dilemma. At this moment, Duanmu Yuan suddenly fell to the ground without a sound. The people around him were confused. Cave Master Duanmu, what are you doing? Someone ran over and shook his body. Suddenly, he fell to the ground with a face full of shock. Cave Master Duanmu is dead. What? Murong Fu, Big Brother Wu, and Taoist Injustice were all shocked. One by one, they rushed over to check. But no matter how they looked, they could not find the cause of his death. Could it be that Heaven Mountain Maiden is here? No one knew who said this, but everyone present felt their hair stand on end. They all took out their weapons and looked around. Where is Heaven Mountain Maiden? Did you see anything? I didn't see anything. Seeing the group of self-proclaimed heroes shivering in fear, Murong Fu secretly despised them. He took a step forward and cupped his hands toward the night sky, saying, I'm Murong Fu of Gusu. If Grandma Tong is here, please come out and meet me. I'd like to have a taste of old Madam's unparalleled divine power. He knew that Heaven Mountain Maiden had most likely lost her skills and was hiding in some secret place to cultivate. Why would she appear here? Hence, his words were powerful and resonant. Coupled with his handsome appearance, the aura he exuded was rather admirable. Chapter 1779. Out of everyone present, only Song Qing Shu knew the truth. Even Heaven Mountain Maiden might not know. After all, she did not know that Murong Fu already knew of her current state. As for Duanmu Yuan's sudden death, it was naturally Song Qingshu's doing. He used his inner force to activate a pine needle and silently shot it into the back of his head. It was nighttime and visibility was poor. In addition to the fact that a small blood spot on the scalp was hard to notice, the group of people could not figure out how he died, even after searching for half a day. Song Qingshu had always held back when he attacked. Even if he barged into the palace to interrogate the eunuchs or palace maids, he would just knock them out and not kill them. However, against someone like Duanmu Yuan, there was no need to hold back. When Duanmu Yuan and Murong Fu were fighting, that phlegm would change direction midway. It was extremely strange, and it was obvious that he had cultivated some evil martial arts. Based on the original work's understanding, he should have cultivated the 5 pecks of rice divine technique. This technique was extremely vicious, and to cultivate to such a level, it was unknown how many lives had to be taken. Hence, Song Qingshu did not hold back at all and helped the martial world to eliminate a scourge. The group of people from the 36 caves and 72 islands searched noisily for a long time. When they realized that no one had come out, someone raised an objection. Could it be that Island Lord Duanmu had some hidden illness that caused his sudden death? That's right. With Elder Tong's temper, if she came, she would definitely not hide. Duanmu Yuan's martial arts are very evil. He trained until there is not a single hair on his head, and his skin looks like it is about to bleed. One look, and you can tell that he won't live for long. The group of people discussed, and finally came to a conclusion on Duanmu Yuan's death. Even Eldest Wu, Taoist Booping, and the rest did not have any other doubts. After such an interruption, everyone forgot to use fire to interrogate the girl. Eldest Wu said directly, "Brothers, let's work together today and rebel against Misty Peak. From now on, we will share blessings and bear misfortunes together. Let's swear an oath of blood to achieve great things. Is there anyone who is not willing to do it?" He asked 2 questions, and no one spoke. When he asked the 3rd question, a tall and sturdy man turned around and ran west without saying a word. Boss Wu shouted, "Swordfish Island Lord, where are you going?" The man did not answer, only lifted his feet and ran. His body was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had turned the corner of the colonel. Everyone called out, "This man is cowardly. He's running away in the face of battle. Quickly stop him." In a split second, more than 10 people chased after him. All of them had excellent qigong, but the distance between them and the island master was too far. It was unknown if they would be able to catch up. Suddenly, a long and miserable cry came from the back of the mountain. Everyone was startled, and their expressions changed. The dozen or so people who were chasing after him also stopped. With the sound of wind whistling, a round ball-like object flew out from behind the colonel. It swept through the air and landed in the middle of the crowd. Boss Wu leaped forward and caught the round object in his hand. Under the light, he saw that the object was badly mutilated. It was a severed head. Looking at the face of the severed head, he saw that the eyebrows and eyes were wide open. It was the island master who had just escaped. Taoist Booping laughed loudly and said, "The sword god and the divine sword, you really live up to your name. Brother Zhua, you've guarded well." A clear voice came from behind the call. "Running away in the face of battle. Everyone has the right to punish him. Cave masters, island masters, please don't blame me." Everyone woke up from their panic and said, "Luckily the sword god killed the traitor and didn't spoil our big plan." Boss Wu then smiled and explained, "I was interrupted just now and didn't have time to introduce. This time we've invited a few friends to help us. Other than Taoist Booping, there's also the sword god, Zhuo Bufan, and Fairy Hibiscus. They're all top-notch experts." Although the sword god Zhuo Bufan didn't show his face, he was able to kill an island master without a sound. His martial arts skills were impressive. Fairy Hibiscus was with him, so obviously she wouldn't be too far off. Song Qing-shu was startled. He seemed to have some impression of this sword god, Zhuo Bufan. He seemed to have participated in the Golden Snake meeting as well. He could activate the sword in his hand to form a sword ray that was a foot long. His sword skills weren't bad. It was a pity that he met Ah Qing. She could easily form a sword ray that was 10 feet long. Song Qing-shu was scared out of his wits and had to flee. Suddenly, he couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. "AI, I don't know where that little girl Ah Qing is now. Kunlun is so vast. Where can I find her?" On the other side, Murong Fu also frowned. He obviously remembered what happened at the Golden Snake meeting. He had seen the sword ray in Zhuo Bufan's hand with his own eyes. Although it wasn't as heaven-defying as that mysterious girl in green, it was still impressive enough. He was most likely a strong opponent. His purpose this time was to subdue these people from the 3 mountains' 5 peaks. He didn't expect Zhuo Bufan and Taoist Booping to appear. From his point of view, the other party volunteered to help because they most likely had the same idea. At this moment, Boss Wu suddenly shouted, "Brothers, please take out your weapons." Everyone slash and stab at this little girl. Although this little girl is young and mute, she is after all a person from Vulture Palace. Everyone's blade has drunk her blood. From now on, we are irreconcilable with Vulture Palace. Even if you want to be half-hearted, we won't allow you to cower or retreat. After he finished, he immediately raised the ghost head blade in his hand. The group of people shouted in unison, "That's right, that's how it should be. Let's make a blood oath. From now on, there will be no retreat. We will fight to the death with that old woman." Hearing his words, Heaven Mountain Maiden's expression changed. She was now at her weakest, so she endured the humiliation and pretended to be a mute girl. Unexpectedly, she still couldn't escape death. Of course, it wasn't that there was no way. She could reveal her identity. Although she didn't have martial arts, she could use the life-death talisman as a bargaining chip. There was still a chance of survival. However, she quickly rejected this idea. She had always been proud, and she couldn't afford to negotiate with this group of scum that she had always looked down on. She might as well die and end all troubles once and for all. That way, she wouldn't have to suffer even more humiliating torture after her identity was exposed. "Prince Murong, why don't you go first?" Boss Wu looked at Murong Fu inquiringly. Murong Fu was a little tempted. The other party asked him first. It was obvious that he was following his lead. But his Murong family had always had a good reputation in the pugilistic world. Now that there were so many people here, if word got out that he was the first to attack a weak little girl, his reputation would really be ruined. Thinking of this, he laughed and said, "I think Brother Wu should go first." Boss Wu looked around and saw that the surrounding people all had fearful expressions. It was obvious that many people were still hesitating. He was worried that things would change if he delayed. He immediately raised the ghost head saber and shouted, "Boss Wu, go first." He waved the saber and chopped down on the little girl in the cloth bag. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. Now that things had come to this, he couldn't continue pretending to be dead. If he allowed the other party to slash at him, this little lowly would be chopped into two bloody halves. But he also wasn't willing to waste time and energy fighting with such a large group of people for Heaven Mountain Maiden. After all, he still needed to rely on them to exhaust Li Liang's strength. So he tiptoed, and his whole body turned into a black shadow. He grabbed the little girl on the ground and carried her in his arms. He then sprinted towards the mountain peak in the northwest corner. Chapter 1780. Everyone saw that the person's footsteps were light and quick like lightning. He actually managed to snatch the girl from Boss Wu's hands at the last moment. His martial arts were really impressive. Everyone was fearful and didn't dare to get too close. However, the implications of this matter were too great. This girl had been rescued by someone else. If they didn't kill him to silence him, everyone's scheme would immediately be exposed and an unexpected calamity would ensue. Everyone screamed and shouted as they chased after him. The opponent was too fast. The group of people chased with all their might, but found that the distance between them was getting further and further. They could only watch helplessly as the opponent disappeared into the distant mountain peak. The mountain peak reached the clouds, and the peak was covered in white snow. To climb to the peak, even a lightness skill expert would need 4 to 5 days. Taoist Booping said, "Don't panic. Once he reaches the peak, it's a dead end. Don't worry about him flying into the sky. Everyone just guard the path at the foot of the peak and don't let him escape." Everyone calmed down when they heard this. Immediately, Boss Wu assigned his men to guard the mountain paths around the mountain peak. Fearing that the mysterious person would rush down and the guards wouldn't be able to stop him, they set up 3 checkpoints on each path. If the head checkpoint couldn't be guarded, there would be a middle checkpoint. After the middle checkpoint, there would be a rear checkpoint. Another 10 experts patrolled back and forth. After the assignment was made, Boss Wu, Taoist Booping, Cave Master and Sang Tagong, Cave Master Hua, Island Master Qin, and dozens of others went up the mountain to search. Murong Fu, Sword God Jua Bufon, Goddess Hibiscus, and the others patrolled back and forth. They had to get rid of this mysterious person first to prevent future troubles. After Song Qing-shu saved the girl, he didn't want to clash with the other island masters and cave masters and let Li Longzhua take advantage of him. So he used his lightness skill and ran for a while. He didn't want to reveal his identity, so he held back his lightness skill. Even so, he had already shaken off his pursuers. The sky was gradually turning bright, and he stepped on a thin layer of snow. He had already run halfway up the mountain. In the dense forest where the sunlight couldn't reach, there was snow that had yet to melt. Where should I run to next? Song Qing-shu couldn't help but mutter to himself. He had fought with Heavenly Mountain Maiden not too long ago, but he didn't expect that her cultivation would dissipate so quickly and that she would be easily captured by those island masters and cave masters. Originally, he wanted to sit on a mountain and watch the tigers fight, but he didn't expect that he would have to personally participate in the battle. For a moment, he didn't know what to do next. Suddenly, he heard a voice say, "Coward, you only want to run for your life. I'm so ashamed of you." Song Qing-shu was startled. Of course, he wasn't as stupid as Shuju, who thought it was a ghost. He could tell that the voice was coming from the girl in his arms. Did she really think he was a stupid boy like Shuju? At this time, Song Qing-shu still had the appearance of Mu Gaofeng. Although Tianshan Tonglao had seen him before, she did not recognize him. Seeing that she was still using her old and scary tone, Song Qing-shu decided to play with her and play some role-playing games with her. "Are you a human or a ghost?" Song Qing-shu pretended to be scared and hurriedly threw the girl to the ground. Ouch! Tianshan Tonglao's cultivation was almost 0, so she couldn't react in time. She fell on her, but couldn't help but cry out in pain. Because she was not prepared, Her voice sounded like a baby. Of course, she reacted quickly and quickly sat up. She glared at the man in front of her and said, "Bastard." Her voice was old again. Noticing that she was rubbing her, but secretly, Song Qing-shu laughed in his heart. However, he pretended to be confused and said, "So you are not mute. Why does your voice sound so old?" Tianshan Tonglao didn't answer. Instead, she asked, "What is your relationship with the Misty Peak? Why did you risk your life to save this person?" She sat up straight, but her eyes were bright and full of vigor. She had a domineering aura. Song Qing-shu shook his head and said, "I have nothing to do with the Misty Peak. Actually, this was not right." Speaking of which, he did know two big figures of Ethereal Peak. One was the sacred messenger of Ethereal Peak, Fu Mini, who was also the White Lotus Saintess, Tang Sire. The other was Elder Tong herself. "Are you Camel Wood Gao Feng of the Northern Frontier?" Tianshan Tong Lao looked him up and down. She noticed his hunchback and appearance. She suddenly asked. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "You have a good eye, little girl." Unexpectedly, she said, "You don't even greet your elders. You are so rude." "What little girl?" "I am your grandma." Her voice was old and her expression was old. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "How can a little girl like you want to be someone's grandma?" Tianshan Tong Lao didn't explain. She just stared at him and said, "You haven't told me why you saved me." Song Qing-shu sternly said, "It's the duty of a Jianghu person to help when seeing injustice on the road. Seeing so many people bullying a weak little girl like you, of course I couldn't stand it, so I helped you." Tianshan Tonglao sneered and said, "Camelwood Gao Feng of the Northern Frontier has killed many people and robbed them. Since when did he become a chivalrous person? Who are you trying to fool? Tell me, what are you planning? You've seen through me." Song Qing-shu rubbed his hands together as he approached her, scrutinizing her delicate skin up close. Paired with Mu Gaofeng's appearance, he revealed a strange uncle smile. "Actually, I also know that risking offending the 36 caves and 72 islands to save you isn't a very wise decision. But who asked me to like little girls like you the most? Thinking of your slender and delicate bodies, and that adorable milky voice, my entire body would heat up. If I were to let Boss Wu and his men slash you bit by bit, what a waste it would be. So I might as well save you and enjoy myself." Tianshan Tonglao, never in a million years would she have expected such an answer. If it had been a simple young man, she could have casually given him some pointers in martial arts in return. Even if it was an ambitious person, the Vulture Palace had access to countless resources, so it would not be a problem. But of all things, the person she had met was a perverted sex fiend, the kind that especially liked children. Tianshan Tonglao had roamed the world her whole life and never knew what fear was. Even at the 10,000 Immortals Convention, when she could have been killed at any time, she didn't even frown. But now, she felt a chill down her spine and broke out in cold sweat, because she knew how attractive her appearance was to this pervert. "Little girl, Uncle will treat you to a lollipop." Song Qing-shu found that he had a bad taste. Now that he was wearing Mu Gaofeng's appearance, he was getting more and more excited. Imagining Mu Gaofeng's ugly and wretched appearance in his mind, coupled with that salty smile, if it was a normal girl, it would have left a lifetime of trauma. Even with Tianshan Tonglao's strong will, her expression changed several times. Although she didn't know what a lollipop was, she thought it wasn't a good word. She quickly said, "If you like women, I can give you dozens of them." Vulture Palace lacked many things, but not women. Song Qing-shu deliberately teased her. He shook his head and said, "Women are too old. A little girl like you is the king. The rest are heresy." Chapter 1781. Really? Song Qing-shu revealed a slightly moved expression. Looking at the man's perverted smile, Heaven Mountain Tonglao was furious. However, the situation was unforgiving, so she could only control her emotions and said, "Of course. What is a dozen?" Song Qing-shu looked like he wanted to get to the bottom of it. Heaven Mountain Tonglao suppressed her anger and said, "You want a dozen? Of course, the more the better." Looking at the angry little girl, Song Shu could not help but feel happy. Can I give you 100? Heaven Mountain Tong Lao's voice turned cold. She could no longer suppress her killing intent. Sure, sure. Song Shu gestured with his hands, looking like he had gotten a great bargain. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao finally heaved a sigh of relief. She thought to herself, when we get to Vulture Palace, I will let you know what it means to be unable to live or die. Song Shu walked 2 rounds excitedly and stopped. He looked reluctant and said, forget it. Although 100 girls are good, they will be like flowers in the mirror and the moon in the water if we don't get them. People like us in the pugilistic world live a dangerous life. After today, we might not be able to see tomorrow's sun. It's better to drink today and get drunk today. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao's expression changed. What do you mean? Song Shu laughed and said, what I mean is that it's enough to spend a night with a beautiful girl like you. We can talk about the 100 girls in the future. How dare you? Heaven Mountain Tong Lao was dumbfounded. She did not expect to face such a problem. Usually, such a person would not be able to get within 10 feet of her. Even if he really appeared, she could make him suffer with a flick of her finger. However, it had to be now. Little girl, I will let you feel the joy of being a woman. Song Shu felt that he had a talent for playing the role of a bad guy. At this moment, he was as repulsive as he could be. Of course, Mu Gaofeng's wretched appearance played a big role. Bastard. At this point, if Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao could still restrain herself, she wouldn't be Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao. She waved her palm and slapped the other party's face. The young lady is angry. Song Shu was halfway through his sentence when his expression suddenly changed. This was because the other party's slap was just a feint. Her real goal was to use her other hand to seal several major acupuncture points on his waist. Song Shu hurriedly reached out to grab the hand that she used to slap him, and used his other hand to block her attack from below. The angle of the opponent's attack was really tricky and strange. Even with his current martial arts, it took him a lot of effort to block it. But before he could heave a sigh of relief, his expression suddenly changed because the hand that slapped his face had clearly been grabbed by the wrist, but suddenly turned around like a loach and forcibly locked his pulse at an incredible angle. Unfortunately, she had lost more than half of her internal energy. As soon as she placed her finger on his meridian, Song Shu's body-protecting internal energy shook it off. The Heavenly Mountain plum-breaking hand truly lives up to its name. Song Shu secretly clicked his tongue. This kind of grappling skill was most suitable for close-range attacks. In this field, it should be the best in the world. Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao was indeed very experienced. The combination attack, just now, was both confusing and attacking. She understood the principle that what was fake was real, and what was real was fake. Her skill could be said to have reached the max. If she had the best internal energy, he might have suffered a lot just now. But now, he couldn't give her any more chances. He held her two small hands tightly and pinched her pulse. She only felt her whole body go soft, and she couldn't muster up any strength. Little girl, your body is small, but your temper is quite big. Song Shu now had the absolute advantage, so he could not help but tease her calmly. What kind of demon are you? Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao suddenly calmed down and did not show any extreme reaction like struggling. Song Shu was stunned. What do you mean? Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao said, I was almost fooled by you before, but now I finally remember. I heard that Ming hunchback of the great northern frontier robbed people, but I never heard that he had any fetish for women, let alone little girls. The most despicable thing in Jianghu is a rapist. It's normal that I purposely hid this information, Song Shu explained. Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao sneered, and your martial arts completely expose that you are not Mu Gaofeng. When you saved me at the gathering of 10,000 immortals, the Qinggong you used was extremely brilliant. At that time, I had some doubts until you dealt with my Heavenly Mountain plum-breaking hand. If Mu Gaofeng had this ability, he would have been a famous figure in Jianghu and would not be confined to a corner of the great northern frontier. Song Shu secretly nodded. His instinctive reaction to her sudden attack had indeed revealed too much information. Since he had been seen through, He did not bother to pretend anymore. After all, it was quite uncomfortable to pretend to be a hunchback all the time. He straightened his body, took out the camouflage thing on his back, and threw it aside. He stretched his body and let out a long sigh of relief. I wanted to flirt with you, but I didn't expect to be seen through. Your voice. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was startled. She vaguely felt that it was somewhat familiar. Song Qingshu took off his mask, smiled, and squatted down in front of her. We meet again. It's you? Heavenly Mountain Tonglao exclaimed. She forgot to disguise her voice and involuntarily returned to her childish voice. Seeing that she cleared her throat and was about to return to her old voice, Song Qingshu impatiently patted her head. All right. We know each other very well. Why are you still pretending? Don't hit my head. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao covered her head and glared at him. Looking at her lively expression, Song Qingshu really could not associate her with an old lady in her 90s. He felt that she was more like a little girl. Hey, are you Heavenly Mountain Tonglao's granddaughter or something? Are you pretending to be her? Song Qingshu asked suspiciously. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao said angrily, I have been chased all my life. How can I have a granddaughter? Chased? Song Qingshu frowned slightly and directly reached out to grab her wrist. She wanted to dodge, but unfortunately, she did not have any power, and her reaction speed was greatly reduced. How could she dodge? After checking her pulse, Song Qingshu nodded. Yes, you are indeed a virgin. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao did not expect him to actually check this seriously. Even though she was very experienced, she was very embarrassed at this moment. Bastard, let me go. She was embarrassed and angry, so this shout was very loud. They heard a long shout from halfway up the mountain. She is here, everyone. Chase this way. The voice was loud and clear. It was Taoist Booping's voice. Chapter 1782. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was really angry at this time. He checked her pulse to check that. No wonder people in Jianghu said that he was a lustful playboy. Today, she really saw it for herself. Her angry roar soon attracted Taoist Booping and his people who were searching for them. At first, Song Qingshu was a little impressed by their speed, but then he thought about it. He had been delayed here for so long with Heavenly Mountain Tonglao. It was like a tortoise and a hare racing. Although their lightness skill was far inferior to his, they could still catch up with him if they kept chasing. Brat, let's see where you can run. Taoist Booping and his people caught up. When they saw that Song Qingshu was just a young man, they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He was so young. No matter how good his kung fu was, he couldn't be that good. As for the other party's lightness skill, he didn't take it seriously. In Jianghu, it was too common to see people with good lightness skill, but poor kung fu. For example, Yun Zhonghe, one of the 4 villains, and the young man surnamed Duan whom he met a few days ago. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao used to think that these island masters and cave masters were really hateful, but now she suddenly felt that they were much more pleasing to the eye. Although her reason told her that these people's kung fu was far inferior to that bastard's, they could always bring him some trouble. She would be very happy to see that bastard in trouble. However, she had a good plan. Suddenly, the smile on her face froze because the other party pointed at her without any moral integrity and said, Hey, didn't you want to cause trouble for Heavenly Mountain Tonglao? She is Heavenly Mountain Tonglao. Go find her. Hearing his words, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao only felt that her blood was boiling, and she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. As for Taoist Booping and his people, when they heard the words Heavenly Mountain Tonglao, they all stopped in their tracks in fear and looked at the girl next to them in doubt. You said she is. Song Qingshu lightly jumped to a big branch and looked like he was watching a good show. Such a big group of people discussed how to deal with her, but in the end, you all caught her, but you didn't recognize her. It's really funny. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao glared at him and said, Brat, no one will think you are mute if you don't speak. I said, what can you do? Bite me? Although Song Qingshu didn't look at himself in the mirror, he knew that he was asking for a beating. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao gritted her teeth so hard that they made cracking sounds. If it were not for the fact that she had lost her power, she would have rushed forward and bitten him. Nonsense. She's just a little girl who doesn't know any martial arts. How could she be the heavenly mountain Tonglao? Taoist Booping recovered from his shock and immediately realized the key point. Song Qing-shu shook his head and sighed. You guys are really idiots. You guys have been bullied by the heavenly mountain Tonglao for a long time. You guys have been suffering in silence for so many years. Why do you dare to resist this time? That's because we found out that the heavenly mountain Tonglao might be sick. Taoist Booping's voice stopped abruptly. He looked at the little girl beside him in disbelief. Is she? He had a terrible guess in his mind, but it was so unimaginable that he didn't dare to say it out loud. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, You're right. The martial arts that heavenly mountain Tonglao practices is called the supremacy of the 8 desolations. Every 30 years, she will return to her youth. During this period, her martial arts will disappear and return to the level when she was a child. After that, every day she practices it, she will gain a year's worth of martial arts. After a few months, her martial arts will be restored to its original state. Then, you guys will die without a burial place. Seeing that Taoist Booping's expression was uncertain, Song Qing-shu added, Didn't Morong Fu tell you? He knows it too. As expected, Taoist Booping's expression changed greatly. That damn Morong Fu never mentioned it. Then, he looked at the little girl beside him. He wanted to step forward, but didn't dare to approach her. Are you really the old lady? Heavenly Mountain Tonglao's prestige was still there. Before the assembly of 10,000 immortals, they were happy to call her an old lady or an old thief behind her back. But now, in front of her, they didn't dare to act rashly. Humph, you guys are really bold. Don't you want the antidote for the life and death spell this year? Since things had come to this point, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao naturally wouldn't deny it needlessly. Of course, she had already put away her cute little voice and replaced it with her usual old and dignified voice. Taoist Booping was not a big deal. He was an expert invited by Boss Wu, not a member of the 36 caves and 72 islands, so he didn't have any life and death spell with him. However, the other people with him all had pale faces. They knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. Taoist Booping was shocked. In a one-on-one fight, these people were no match for him. But if they joined forces, he might not be able to defeat them. If Heavenly Mountain Tonglao turned them against him with just a few words, his life would be in danger in order to please Heavenly Mountain Tonglao. Since things had come to this point, the ruthlessness in his heart was stimulated. I heard that the old lady doesn't need to use the second move to kill people. I like to see it. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his horsetail whisk and rushed toward the old lady. He had always been quick-witted. Just now, after hearing what Song Qing-shu said, combined with everyone's speculation about Heavenly Mountain Tonglao, he knew that the little girl in front of him probably didn't have any martial arts. But it was useless for him to believe it. He had to make his companions believe it as well. Unfortunately, his companions had been afraid of her for a long time and were already scared out of their wits. So, he could only prove it with facts. Seeing that the other party was rushing over, Tianshan Tonglao's expression changed. Although Taoist Booping's martial arts were good, for her, picking up a pine nut was enough to take his life. But now that she had lost her martial arts, how to deal with him was a big problem. But after all, she had decades of cultivation and eyesight. Although her power was a lot weaker, she still had her skills. Soon, she used Tianshan Plum Breaking Hand to block his horsetail whisk. Then, she took the opportunity to pinch the Taiyuan point on his wrist. Taoist Booping felt his hand go numb, and his 5 fingers holding the horsetail whisk involuntarily loosened. At this time, he was shocked. No wonder it was said that Heavenly Mountain Tonglao didn't need to use the second move to kill people. Her moves were really exquisite and strange, beyond ordinary people's imagination. But he immediately noticed something strange. Originally, he had accepted his fate and waited for death. He didn't expect that the little girl's hand would be bounced off by the genuine chi on his body. Originally, he didn't even dare to think about such a situation. He should be thankful that his hand was not bounced off by the genuine chi. How could it be possible for him to bounce off her hand? He took back the horsetail whisk. This time, he didn't focus on his moves. Instead, he instilled his internal energy into it. He planned to win with internal energy. Sure enough, the little girl instantly became flustered. He was overjoyed and hurriedly shouted, "The old witch really lost her power. Everyone, let's catch her and force the life and death talisman out of her." The island masters and cave masters were a little hesitant at first, but when they saw that Taoist Booping could actually force Heavenly Mountain Tonglao, who they respected like a god, into such a difficult situation, they all became spirited. They didn't have the slightest bit of fear before. One by one, they shouted and rushed over as if they saw the dawn of freedom. Chapter 1783. Brat, I don't need your help. Hearing her opponent's gloating tone, Tianshan Tonglao gritted her teeth in anger. She immediately performed a few of the Tianshan plum snapping hands exquisite techniques. Although she did not manage to snatch her opponent's weapon away, she managed to make their weapons entangle with each other, which greatly relieved her own pressure. However, the island masters and cave masters were not surprised. Instead, they were happy. Earlier, they had only seen the battle between Taoist Booping and her. Although Heavenly Mountain Tonglao seemed to be in a difficult situation, they were worried that the opponent was deliberately showing weakness. Now that they had personally fought, the opponent had used such an exquisite technique. If it was an ordinary person, they would have already lost their lives. Now, she could only use her skillful technique to guide their weapons to collide. This proved that there was indeed a problem with her internal energy. The old woman's internal energy has dissipated. Let's fight together. The island masters were excited and tightened their grip on their weapons. Song Qing Shu stood on the tree and saw everything clearly. He couldn't help but shake his head. If you didn't ask for my help, you would have died here. I didn't expect the great Tianshan Tonglao to die in the hands of a few unimportant people. If this gets out, you will become a laughingstock. Taoist Booping was furious. He thought, where did this bastard come from? How dare he be so arrogant? Although they weren't famous in Jianghu, they were still powerful figures. Now, they had become unimportant people in Jianghu. Who did he think he was? Unfortunately, Tianshan Tonglao had accumulated her power for a long time. Even though her internal energy had dissipated, they didn't dare to let their guard down. They planned to deal with Tianshan Tonglao first, then teach the young man a lesson. No one will think you're mute if you don't talk. Tianshan Tonglao's face was cold. She was really angry now. She didn't even hesitate to use a hidden weapon to hurt an island master. Now, she had used her skills to the extreme. If she wasn't surrounded by a group of people, she could still deal with one or two island masters and cave masters, even though she had lost her internal energy. Unfortunately, there were many of them. She could often subdue one of them, but the others would inevitably attack and injure him. So, she missed many good opportunities. Being a mute is better than being a dead person. In less than 10 moves, you'll be bleeding. Song Qing Shu saw it clearly and advised her in a sincere tone. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao's reply was very direct. Get lost. However, because she was distracted, her arm was stabbed and blood gushed out. The others were like sharks that smelled blood, attacking her vital acupoints. Luckily, they only wanted to ask for the antidote of the life-death note, so they didn't dare to kill her. Otherwise, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao would have been defeated long ago. Even so, Heavenly Mountain Maiden had reached her limit. Although she still had her techniques and eyesight, due to her cultivation, her speed and strength could not keep up with her mind. Currently, she was only slightly better than Wang Yuyan, the master of verbal cannon. It was already a miracle that she could last until now. Suddenly, in order to dodge the enemy's machete, her whole body dodged backwards. As a result, she stepped on a stone on the ground and twisted her ankle. Her whole face instantly became incomparably pale. A normal person would have screamed at such an injury, but she had always been stubborn and held back her voice. Unfortunately, while she could hold back her voice, she could not hold back the injury on her foot. She was already in a difficult situation, and now that she had sprained her foot, there was no way she could dodge the enemy's attack. Taoist injustice and the others didn't expect her to suddenly fall. They had already launched their attacks, but they were far from being able to control their movements. They couldn't stop their attacks. Seeing that Heavenly Mountain Maiden was about to be hacked to death, they were terrified. After all, only her opponent could solve the life-death note. Looking at the swords and knives coming from all directions, Heavenly Mountain Maiden knew that she couldn't escape anymore. She accepted her fate and waited for death to come. However, she still had the power she had in the past. Even in such a desperate situation, she didn't want to close her eyes and wait for death to come. Noticing this, Song Qing-shu naturally could not sit still and watch. He tiptoed, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Tianshan Tonglao. In the next moment, the two of them disappeared, and the 7 or 8 swords slashed at the air. Everyone was shocked. They looked around hurriedly and found that Xiao Luo had stopped under a big tree a few meters away, and he was holding Heavenly Mountain Maiden in his arms. How did he do that? Everyone's expression changed. What he did just now was not a qing gong, but a teleportation. Perhaps only Heavenly Mountain Maiden knew that Song Qing-shu's movement was called so close, yet worlds apart. After all, she was defeated by Song Qing-shu because of this movement. Taoist injustice came back to his senses. Although Xiao Luo's qinggong was amazing, he had seen it before. However, Xiao Luo didn't show his kung fu and just kept running away, which made Taoist injustice think that Xiao Luo was the same type of person as Duan Yu. Don't let him run away. Go and block his escape route. Taoist injustice ordered his companions to rush forward. He was very confident. Even if his kung fu was very good, he had lost most of his kung fu when he was holding a little girl. If they put the little girl down, they would be even less afraid. They could attack the injured Heavenly Mountain Maiden at any time. Then, they would be invincible. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. He was in a mood to bicker with Heavenly Mountain Maiden just now, because she was a beautiful little Lolita. Even if they were bickering, it was still pleasing to the eye. However, now that he was facing Taoist injustice and his group, how could he be so patient? He stretched out his hand, and a few small stones on the ground appeared in his hand. Then, he flicked his fingers and the stones shot out. Taoist injustice and the others cried out in alarm and fell to the ground one by one. Song Qing-shu was not like Xu Zhu in the original novel, who couldn't distinguish the severity of the situation. His control of kung fu had reached perfection. Although he used the stones to shoot, he used a soft force. He only sealed the acupoints of those people and didn't take their lives. Perhaps it was because he came from the future that everyone was equal, but he always had an untimely heart of compassion. He had been criticized by Dongfang Muxue several times for being soft-hearted, but he did not regret it. He still followed the principle of forgiving people and not killing people if he could. Taoist injustice and his group were all shocked. Only now did they know how terrifying this young man was. Just now, he subdued everyone with a wave of his hand. His kung fu was even more powerful than the legendary Heavenly Mountain Maiden. At this time, Song Qing-shu was not interested in their awe-inspiring eyes. Instead, he looked at the little girl in his arms and asked, "Are you okay?" Heavenly Mountain Maiden directly pushed his chest and said, "Put me down." Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. He didn't want to take advantage of her, but he noticed that her feet were already swollen. Instead of putting her down directly, he helped her to sit down on a clean stone. Feeling his care, Heavenly Mountain Maiden's face couldn't help but soften a little, but she still didn't appreciate it. She said, "I didn't ask you to save me. Don't expect me to thank you." Song Qing-shu laughed and said, Okay, I took the initiative. It has nothing to do with you." At the same time, he secretly despised himself in his heart. The other party was obviously an old witch, but why did he have to do that? Sure enough, as the internet said in his previous life, appearance was justice. He really couldn't connect this beautiful little girl in front of him with an old woman in her 90s. "Do you want to deal with the wound on your body?" Song Qing-shu pointed at her still bleeding arm. Chapter 1784. What's wrong with you? Song Qing-shu asked hurriedly, noticing Tianshan Tonglau's strange behavior. Tianshan Tonglau's face was pale. She didn't answer him. She pushed him away, then staggered towards Taoist Booping. Taoist Booping's acupoints were already sealed. He was confused when he saw her running towards him. However, he had already accepted his fate. Since his skills were not as good as hers, it was up to her to kill him. Tianshan Tonglao walked to his side and knelt down. Under his confused gaze, she cut his throat with a knife. Then, she bent down and started sucking the blood that was gushing out. Taoist Booping let out a shrill scream. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. In fact, he was doomed to die after his throat was cut. He could have lingered on for a while, but Tianshan Tonglau's actions scared him out of his wits. Song Qing Shu was also dumbfounded. What was going on? Was this a real-life vampire? As for the remaining island masters and cave masters, they were all scared out of their wits. Sure enough, after Tianshan Tonglao sucked Taoist Booping's blood, she probably felt that his blood had no more spiritual energy. Then, she found another island master and did the same thing. Waves of screams were heard. The other island masters who didn't have their blood sucked by her were originally powerful figures. However, at this moment, they were either scared out of their wits or fainted. Tianshan Tonglao frowned when she smelled the stench in the air. "You're disturbing my appetite." As soon as she finished speaking, several hidden weapons were shot towards those people. Enough! Song Qing Shu stretched out his finger and flicked the hidden weapons away. He walked forward and pulled Tianshan Tonglao over. Before he could scold her, she shook him off and sat down cross-legged. She pointed her right index finger to the sky and her left index finger to the ground. She snorted and breathed out 2 streams of white gas from her nostrils. The white gas wrapped around her head and didn't dissipate. Gradually, it became thicker and thicker until it became a cloud of white mist. It completely covered her face. Then, all the joints in her body made cracking sounds like popping beans. After a long time, the sound of popping beans became softer and softer. Then, the white mist faded as well. Tianshan Tonglao breathed in the white mist through her nostrils. When the white mist was gone, she opened her eyes and stood up slowly. Song Qing Shu rubbed his eyes and felt that his vision was a little blurry. He felt that the expression on her face was a little strange, but he couldn't tell what exactly was different. However, after thinking about it, he understood. This was the magical part of the 8 Desolation and 6 Directions supremacy. After returning to youth, with every day of practice, one's internal energy would increase by a year. Their entire person would be equivalent to growing a year older, which was why their expression and appearance would change so slightly. Thinking that the beautiful little girl in front of him would become an old woman in a few months, Song Qing Shu had a strange expression on his face. He thought that it was such a waste of God's gift. However, he quickly collected his thoughts and looked at her coldly. What were you doing just now? Although he liked the appearance of this beautiful little girl, if she was a homicidal maniac or even a vampire, his good impression of her would be gone. Tianshan Tonglao answered calmly, "I have a strange disease. If I don't drink the blood of the living every noon, the genuine qi in my body will boil and I will burn to death. I will go crazy before I die." Song Qing Shu frowned slightly. He vaguely remembered that in the original work, it was said that the supremacy of the 8 desolations she cultivated did indeed have great side effects. Rejuvenation could be said to be an act that defied the natural order, so it was naturally not tolerated by the heavenly axiom and would bring about a series of strange illnesses. Is it a problem with your practice? Song Qing Shu did not wait for her to answer. He grabbed her hand and felt her pulse. As expected, he felt that the genuine qi in her body was restless, especially the Shaoyang Sanjiao meridian. It was a mess. "It's none of your business." Tianshan Tonglao pulled her hand back and snorted. "No wonder," Song Qing Shu mumbled to himself. The Shaoyang Sanjiao meridian of the Shaoyang Sanjiao meridian was responsible for endocrine growth. If there was a problem with these meridian, a person's normal growth would be affected. It was no wonder that Tianshan Tonglao could not grow to the size of a normal adult. She could only look like a petite little girl. So you practice by drinking the blood of the living every day to suppress the restless, genuine qi in your body? Song Qing-shu asked with a frown. Tian Shan, Tong Lao nodded. She did not want to talk to him at first, but this matter had been bothering her. She sighed in agreement. Yes, and it must be fresh blood. Otherwise, the genuine qi in my body will boil, and I will die. The remaining island masters and cave masters had just woken up when they heard what she said. They fainted again. Don't kill people and drink their blood in the future, Song Qing-shu said coldly. Tian Shan, Tong Lao snorted. Do you think I want to drink their stinky blood? Usually, Spirit Vulture Palace keeps all kinds of sick deer, red-crowned cranes, and the like. When the time comes, catch one and let me have some of its blood. It's much better than their stinky blood. Hearing that she only let her blood out and did not kill, Song Qing-shu's expression softened. Just don't kill people for the time being. Tian Shan, Tong Lao rolled her eyes at him. Then will you let me drink your blood every day? She was just saying it casually. However, when she thought of his unfathomable inner strength and cultivation base, his qi and blood must be the best of the best. If she drank his blood, it would be a great tonic. She could not help but lick her lips when she thought of it. Don't even think about it. Looking at the little girl's bright and glossy red lips, Song Qing-shu thought to himself that there was a saying on the internet in the future, a drop of essence is worth 10 drops of blood. Giving her his own blood was definitely not okay. If he gave her something more nutritious, Song Qing-shu looked at the little girl in front of him and quickly stopped thinking. He despised himself for being too beastly. You won't let me kill people, and you won't give me your blood. Are you trying to kill me? Tian Shan, Tong Lao laughed coldly. Song Qing-shu had a strange expression. He thought, I have an alternative plan. This way, I can satisfy you and satisfy myself. Of course, he knew that once he said this evil plan, she would definitely fight him to the death. Cough, cough. Song Qing-shu stopped thinking and said hurriedly, Don't worry. With me by your side, I can suppress the raging vital qi in your body at any time. He was not lying. He was an expert in both yin and yang qi. Tian Shan Tong Lao's body obviously had an imbalance of yin and yang. Of course, he only had the confidence to suppress it, but he did not know how to cure her problem. Can you stay by my side for the rest of your life? Tian Shan, Tong Lao snorted. Obviously, she did not appreciate his kindness. She turned around and was about to leave. Who knew that after taking a step, she would ouch. She covered her ankle with cold sweat. Only then did she remember that she had sprained her ankle. It was now swollen like a steam bun. Don't try to be brave. If you keep walking, your foot will become a pig's trotter. Song Qing-shu squatted down and pulled her foot over and placed it on his thigh. He was going to help her circulate her meridians. What are you doing? Tian Shan, Tong Lao blushed. She subconsciously wanted to take her foot back. In this world, a woman's foot was a very private part. Song Qing-shu looked at her angrily and said, Do you really think you are a little girl? You are an old lady, so what is there to be shy about? Tian Shan Tong Lao was speechless. What he said seemed to make sense, but why was it so strange? Chapter 1785. Song Qing-shu placed Tian Shan Tong Lao's feet on his thighs. Since she was as petite as a Lolita, her feet were small and delicate. Coupled with her fair skin, it was as if he was holding a piece of white jade. What the hell? How could I be interested in an old lady's feet? Song Qing-shu could not help but despise himself. He tried his best to divert his attention by hinting at her age. However, no matter how hard he tried, he had to admit that her feet were beautiful. Hey, what are you doing? Tian Shan Tong Lao was furious when she saw him staring at her feet without moving. I'm just thinking about how to improve the blood circulation. Song Qing-shu was no longer the young man he used to be. Naturally, he would not make a fool of himself in front of her. He said it casually without blushing. Hearing what he said, Tian Shan Tong Lao did not know what to say. However, she had always kept her chastity. She had never been so close to a man before, let alone having her feet held in his hands. Feeling the heat coming from his palm, Tian Shan, Tong Lao suddenly felt her heart beating faster. She was shocked and thought that there was something wrong with her martial arts. She quickly checked for a long time, but did not find anything strange. Only then did she realize that she was just shy. Thinking about this, she was even more furious. How could she be shy in front of a young man? If this got out, how could she, the Tianshan Tong Lao, live in the world? Of course, Song Qing-shu did not know what she was thinking. He looked at her swollen feet and used his internal energy to gently massage a few acupoints on her ankle. "It's so cold." Tianshan Tong Lao shivered as she felt the bone-chilling coldness. As Song Qing-shu treated her, he explained, "For the bleeding under the skin, you should apply a cold compress for the first 24 hours so that the capillaries on the feet will contract and stop the bleeding. After 24 hours, when the bleeding has healed, you need to apply a hot compress to improve the blood circulation." These were some of the common medical knowledge from his world, but Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao had never heard of them. She was stunned as she did not understand many of the terms. However, her attention quickly returned to the way Chu Li used his inner chi. She could not help but admire him secretly. When I fought with him before, his inner chi was obviously more masculine, but now he could use such a soft inner chi. It is really rare in the world. As the cold, genuine chi was channeled in her leg, the pain in her leg was alleviated. The feeling of Ding Hao's hand touching her leg became more obvious. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao's face gradually turned red. She never expected that she would blush one day. She was about to scold Ding how to let go of her leg, but when she opened her mouth, no words came out. Could it be that there was still a trace of reluctance in her heart? Right at this moment, a coquettish laughter suddenly came from not far away. Oh, isn't eldest senior sister deeply in love with junior brother? Why are you so lovey-dovey with another man so quickly? And you even found such a handsome young man. Hearing this voice, Tianshan Tong Lao retracted her feet like a startled rabbit. Song Qing-shu turned his head to look, only to see a slender and graceful girl in white standing not far away, looking at the two with a playful expression. At this time, she was not wearing her usual veil, revealing a face that was somewhat similar to Wang Yuyin and Li Qingluo. It was the peerless beauty Li Qiushui. "It's you, bitch." Tianshan Tong Lao was furious when she saw her enemy. Li Qiushui covered her mouth and laughed. She could not help but gloat. "Oh, weren't you pretty high and mighty a few days ago? How did you end up like this? It's none of your business. No matter how bad I am, it's still better than you." Tianshan Tong Lao was not lying. Now that Li Qiushui was chased out of the base camp, Li Longzhua had taken over all the power in the country. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was a stray dog. A cold light flashed in Li Qiushui's eyes. She smiled and said, "All of this is thanks to senior sister. Junior sister, you have to thank senior sister." As she spoke, she walked towards them. She waved her wide sleeves, and a cold light shot out at an extremely fast speed. Who would have thought that her words were so gentle and kind, but her actions were so cruel? Tianshan Tong Lao knew her character and was prepared for it. Unfortunately, her power had not recovered and her feet were injured. So how could she avoid it? Fortunately, Song Qing-shu was standing at the side. He was very clear about the grudges between the two of them. When he saw Li Qiushui's smiling appearance, he knew it was another trick. He reached out his hand in time and struck the cold light to the ground. It turned out to be a dagger that could cut through iron like mud. Seeing him attack, Li Qiushui's expression changed. "Oh, I thought senior sister had hooked up with a pretty boy. I didn't expect you to be a martial arts expert." Song Qing-shu felt that it was time for him to speak. "Even though my face is very pale and I don't mind living off a woman, but your tone makes me very unhappy. Is this how you treat your savior?" A trace of doubt flashed across Li Qiushui's face. Because she was Tianshan Tong Lao's lifelong enemy, all her attention was on her just now. Even though she saw Song Qing-shu, she did not see his face clearly due to the angle. She only thought that he was a pretty boy that Tianshan Tong Lao had found. When she heard his words, she looked at him carefully. When she saw his face clearly, she could not help but be surprised and happy. "Master, it's you." Song Qingshu asked impatiently. Why are you here? Have you recovered from your injuries? Li Qiushui leaned over, her body carrying a wisp of fragrance as she gently replied, How can I recover so quickly? Didn't I say before that I wanted to find a quiet place to recuperate? I have a secret cave in the Lone Dragon Ridge. This place is very dangerous and no one usually comes here, so I will recuperate here. In the end, I heard that the entire mountain was noisy today. I thought that Li Liangzuo's pursuers had arrived. In the end, after eavesdropping, I found out that they were chasing after a missing girl for Vulture Palace. Those idiots from the 36 caves and 72 islands did not know that the person they lost was Tianshan Tong Lao herself. I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I also searched the mountain. I didn't think that I would really find her. Tianshan Tong Lao saw that the two of them were chatting happily and seemed to have some intimacy with each other. She could not help but be shocked and angry. Brat, so you are this evil woman's gigolo. Song Qingshu's face was gloomy. Hey, what's going on between you two sisters? You think that I'm her gigolo, and she thinks that I'm her gigolo. Do I look so enviable? Li Qiushui giggled. Master, don't be angry. Actually, we are complimenting you. Those who can be gigolo must be handsome and elegant. This is the greatest recognition of a man's appearance. Seeing their expressions, especially Li Qiushui's respectful and ingratiating attitude towards him, Tianshan Tong Lao immediately realized that she had misunderstood. After all, Li Qiushui's gigolo were basically yes-men to her. If she was not careful, she would lose her life. Then what's the relationship between you two? Chapter 1786. It's you, Brad. Hearing Li Qiushui's words, Heaven Mountain Tong Lao almost jumped up. Last time, she set up an ambush and thought that she could finally kill Li Qiushui, her lifelong enemy. But she didn't expect a mysterious person to appear and save her. That mysterious person's martial arts were extremely high. The group of people guessed for a long time, but could not guess who he was. They did not expect it to be him. I don't stink. Didn't I just hug you? If you don't believe me, why don't you smell me again? Song Qingshu was not angry at all. As he spoke, he pulled his clothes over for her to smell. Get lost. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao took a few steps back in disgust. Li Qiushui laughed. Ha! Gongzi, you are so daring. You even dared to tease my elder senior sister. Before Song Qingshu could answer, Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao curled her lips and said, Giggle, are you a chicken? She imitated his laughter as she spoke. At the same time, she made goosebumps all over her body. Li Qiushui was speechless. Song Qingshu was speechless. He finally understood why this pair of senior and junior sisters were lifelong enemies. They would not let go of any opportunity to attack each other. All right. I'm not here to listen to you two bicker. Song Qingshu pointed to the mountainside. The people from the 36 caves and 72 islands are coming this way. I don't want to deal with them anymore. He planned to use this group of people to deal with Li Liangzuo in the future. He did not want to fight with them. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao snorted. I don't want to deal with you either. You go your own way here, and I'll go my own way. That's great. Li Qiushui was grinning from ear to ear. With Song Qingshu here, she was afraid of his martial arts and did not dare to make a move. After he left, she would be able to catch up with Heaven Mountain Tong Lao. Now that he had lost his martial arts, it was up to her to decide if she wanted to kill him or not. Song Qingshu frowned and said, If I leave you alone, now that you don't have any martial arts and can't walk, won't you die? Won't all my previous efforts be in vain? I don't want to lose money. He walked over and carried Heaven Mountain Tong Lao. Hey, Heaven Mountain Tong Lao panicked when she was carried by a young man in front of Li Qiushui. I'll spank you if you keep wriggling. Song Qingshu glared at her fiercely. Seeing that she didn't dare to say anything, he thought to himself that the novels he read in his previous life were quite useful. Those male protagonists would often spank the female protagonist's buttocks, and it turned out that it was really effective. Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao was so ashamed that she wanted to die. Li Qiushui said, Tisk, TSK, If little junior brother knew that our hot-tempered eldest senior sister was snuggling in a man's arms, I'm afraid his eyeballs would fall out. Initially, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was a little angry, but she calmed down after hearing her words. Since young, you've always wanted to snatch everything from me. You're so good at martial arts, and you're so good at junior martial brother. Could it be that you've fallen for this brat now? Why don't you ask him and see if he's willing to carry an ugly monster like you? Li Qiushui, Song Qingshu, the reason why Heaven Mountain Tonglao changed her attitude was because she had calmed down. She understood that Li Qiushui was here. Once she left Song Qingshu's protection, she would be found and tortured to death. Instead of falling into such a miserable state, it was better to stay with this brat. All of you shut up. Sensing that the pursuers were getting closer, Song Qingshu carried Heaven Mountain Tonglao up the mountain. Li Qiushui, go back and heal yourself. We'll be leaving first. A strange look flashed across Li Qiushui's eyes. She quickly chased after him. Hee, I'll go with you. What do you mean? Song Qingshu frowned. He didn't understand why she was so clingy all of a sudden. Li Qiushui looked wronged. I'm seriously injured. The place where I was supposed to heal was ruined by the people you brought. If I'm discovered, I'll be chased to the ends of the earth by Li Liangzuo's men. Young master, are you going to leave me in the lurch? Song Qingshu had goosebumps. Speak properly. You're not a stage girl. Why are you speaking so coquettishly? What's a stage girl? Li Qiushui was confused. Even though she hadn't fully recovered from her injuries, she wasn't afraid of these island masters and cave masters with her superb lightness skills. Her only worry was that she would expose herself and attract more powerful masters from Liangzhou. Of course, the most important thing was that she and Heaven Mountain Tonglao were lifelong enemies. Both of them wanted nothing more than to get rid of each other. Now that she saw Song Qingshu being intimate with her, she was worried that he would side with her. She knew Song Qingshu's martial arts very well. If Heaven Mountain Tonglao had such a powerful ally, she wouldn't be able to defeat her for the rest of her life. Thus, how could she be willing to stay together with Song Qingshu? At the very least, she had to win Song Qingshu's favor. Heaven Mountain Tonglao rejoiced in her misfortune. She's saying that you're already so old. Don't act coquettishly like the girls in the brothel. Song Qingshu was speechless. Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. That's not what the stage girl meant. He wanted to explain, but he didn't know where to start. Thus, he gave up. Li Qiushui snorted. Some people are short and petite. They don't have any femininity. They don't have the capital to act coquettishly even if they want to. As she spoke, she purposely puffed out her chest. Heaven Mountain Tonglao gritted her teeth. Song Qingshu had learned his lesson. He didn't participate in their bickering. He carried Heaven Mountain Tonglao and walked forward. Wait for me. Even though he didn't agree to anything, Li Qiushui still followed him with small steps. At the same time, she grabbed a few small stones and threw them at the island masters and cave masters who were lying on the ground. It was a pity that as soon as they woke up, their Achilles heel was hit and they died. Song Qingshu suddenly turned his head. What are you doing? Li Qiushui's face was calm, as if she had done something insignificant. I'm silencing them. Otherwise, if they reveal our whereabouts and identity, it'll be troublesome if Li Liangzhou sends people over. This time, Heaven Mountain Tonglao had the same opinion as her. You're right. You brat. You're too soft-hearted. Sometimes, you should kill when you need to. She hated these island masters and cave masters for betraying her and causing them to be in such an embarrassing situation. Thus, when she saw them being executed by Li Qiushui, she felt a sense of satisfaction. Song Qingshu rationally told himself that they did the right thing. However, emotionally, he couldn't accept this kind of behavior that treated human life like grass. Thus, he walked towards the top of the mountain with a gloomy face. Young master, the top of the mountain is a dead end. If we continue to go up, won't we be courting death? Li Qiushui chased after him and couldn't help but say. Chapter 1787. Li Qiushui was startled and did not understand. There was a dead end in front of them. Why did he say there was no dead end? But seeing his calm demeanor, she suppressed her suspicions and followed. Isn't Master's embrace warm and comfortable? But along the way, she was not willing to stay idle. Seeing Heaven Mountain Tong Lao in his arms, she smiled and asked. Sure enough, Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao couldn't take it anymore. She struggled and shouted, Brat, put me down. Song Qing Shu was speechless. How can you walk when your legs are like this? Also, you listen to your junior apprentice sister try to sow discord. Have you lived these years in vain? He had already figured out their personalities, so he went straight to the point. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao was startled. The first half of Meng Qi's words were fine, but the second half really hit her heart. She gradually calmed down and said, You be asterisk tisich, you don't have to provoke me. There's a free sedan share, why would I walk like you? But Li Qiushui did not pay attention to her. Instead, she looked like she was about to cry. Gongzi is really biased, always protecting her. You have to know that she is the eldest senior sister, and I am the junior sister. Shouldn't Gongzi help me a little? Song Qing Shu had goosebumps. I told you not to talk to me like this. I can't take it. Hearing his words, Heaven Mountain Tong Lao laughed gloatingly and even looked at him more favorably. On the other hand, Li Qiushui's face turned green and white. She was obviously choked. Song Qing Shu's pace was very fast, and Li Qiushui's qigong was not weak either. In addition, they were already close to the peak of the mountain just now. In a short while, they had already reached the peak of the mountain. Because it was located in the northwest, and Lone Dragon Peak's altitude was not low, this place was already covered in snow. Looking at the surroundings that were wrapped in silver, Song Qing Shu felt carefree and relaxed. The gloominess that he had been feeling during this period of time was instantly swept away. This solitary dragon peak is not famous, but the peak already has such a beautiful scenery. All these years, I've been running around everywhere, and it's really too tiring. Once I succeed in the future, I'll bring a few of my female friends to travel all over the country and enjoy the scenery. It's really a wonderful thing. At this moment, Song Qing Shu felt the little girl in his arms tremble. He looked down and saw that Tong Lao's face had turned green. It was obvious that her clothes were too thin. In addition, she didn't have any internal energy to protect her body. Naturally, she couldn't withstand the cold wind at the top of the mountain. However, she had always been a headstrong person. Naturally, she wasn't willing to admit defeat in front of others. He channeled his inner force slightly, and suddenly, a wave of heat was transmitted into Heaven Mountain Tong Lao's body. She felt warm, as if her body was being shone on by the sun. Naturally, she knew that it was the man beside her. She couldn't help but look at him. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she didn't say anything to thank him. Young master, there's no road ahead. Are we going to stay here for a few days? Li Qiushui looked around, and even went to the edge of the cliff to look down. The fog in the air was so deep that she couldn't see the bottom. It made her feel a little dizzy. In my opinion, we should just charge down the mountain. Those island masters and cave masters are just a motley crew. How can they stop young master? Li Qiushui couldn't help but add. Song Qing Shu shook his head. I don't want to have a direct confrontation with them. Why? Li Qiushui's expression suddenly turned strange. Is it because of my eldest senior sister? You love me, love my dog? But these people have already betrayed Vulture Palace. They are no longer eldest senior sister subordinates. Song Qing Shu said calmly, I have my own plans. I don't need to explain it to you. Li Qiushui didn't look for trouble. She smiled and said, I feel that young master's attitude towards me is a little disgusted. It's much better to oppose eldest senior sister. May I ask why? At this moment, Heaven Mountain Tong Lao also looked up curiously. Actually, she had the same feeling. Song Qing Shu frowned and didn't answer. Li Qiushui looked at the way he was carrying Heaven Mountain Tong Lao and suddenly giggled. I understand now. Young master likes those pure and innocent girls. But don't be fooled by my eldest senior sister. She's not the pure and innocent girl you think she is. She's an old woman in her 90s. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao immediately said angrily, Aren't you about the same age? You're an old witch, but you still flirt with men every day. Tui. What do you mean by about the same age? I'm 8 years younger than you. 8 years, okay? We're not even of the same generation. Li Shui said proudly. Suddenly, she said playfully, you might not even be 8 years old with your current body. Seeing two women who had lived for almost a century quarreling over a few years' difference, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel speechless. It seemed that age was a taboo for women of any age. After quarreling with Heaven Mountain Tonglao for a while, Li Shui directly ignored her and turned her attention to Song Qingshu. Young master, it's very simple that you like pure and innocent girls. I happen to have a granddaughter, Princess Yinchuan of Xixia. You should know her. In addition, I also have a granddaughter from the Wang family of Jiangnan. She's well-educated and well-mannered. She's also talented and beautiful. I'll betroth her to you. If you like both of them, you can let the two sisters serve one husband together. Heaven Mountain Tonglao couldn't stand it anymore. Tui, how can you be an elder? You're selling your granddaughter's happiness for your own selfish desire. You're simply a pimp. Li Shui didn't agree. What do you mean by selling my granddaughter's happiness? It's difficult for a woman to find a husband in her life. It's even more difficult to find a hero who's good at both literature and martial arts. Prince Song's martial arts are unparalleled, and he's famous in Jianghu. The key is that he's handsome and kind-hearted. I don't know how many women dream of him. I'm seeking happiness for my two granddaughters. How can I push them into a fire pit? But it's no wonder. You're an old virgin who has never been a parent. Naturally, you don't know how to think for your offspring. Heaven Mountain Tonglao was speechless. Song Qingshu was also a little dizzy from her series of praises. Seeing that she didn't let go of any opportunity to insult Heaven Mountain Tonglao, he also felt a headache. All right. Those people are catching up. At this time, there was a commotion in the distance. Li Shui and Heaven Mountain Tonglao looked in the direction of the sound and saw that there were people everywhere. Murong Fu, Sword God Zhuobu Fan, and the others were leading them. Obviously, they had found the body of Taoist injustice on the mountainside. They didn't dare to be alone and used the tactic of numbers. There at the top of the mountain, someone with sharp eyes saw the three people at the top of the mountain and shouted. The rest of the people immediately increased their speed and climbed over. Seeing so many people gradually surrounding them, Li Shui's expression changed. Although her martial arts were high, she was seriously injured. Previously, she could make full use of the terrain and lightness skill to get rid of this group of people. But now that she was blocked in this dead end, if she fought them head-on, she would most likely die in the hands of this group of people. Young master, what should we do now? Li Shui guiltily leaned towards Song Qingshu. Chapter 1788. Jump down. Li Shui's eyes widened. Although this cliff was not a bottomless abyss, falling down would still result in a terrible death. Even if she was at her peak, she would not dare to jump down like this. Heaven Mountain Tonglao was also surprised. The Qinggong of Misty Peak's Vulture Palace had always been unique. But to jump down from such a high cliff, unless one kept using the force to cushion the fall and see if there was a chance of survival, even if one managed to reach the bottom of the cliff, the impact along the way would be enough to seriously injure a peerless master. Young master, please don't joke around. Li Shui usually smiled sweetly, but at this moment, everyone could see that her smile was forced. When was I joking? Song Qingshu looked at her indifferently. Murong Fu and his people are catching up. I don't want to meet them, so I'll leave first. As he finished, he took a step forward and pretended to jump. Heaven Mountain Tonglao, who was in his arms, cried out in shock. Why, are you scared? It was rare to see her so nervous. Song Qingshu smiled playfully. Heaven Mountain Tonglao stretched her neck. Who said I'm scared? I'm just. She could not think of a good reason and was at a loss for words. Li Shui, who was at the side, did not laugh at her this time. Instead, she said in sympathy, Young master, you are too scary. Are you really confident? Song Qingshu said indifferently, I'm not asking you to jump. What are you worried about? I'm just worried about the safety of young master and senior sister. Maybe it was too fake, but Li Shui was embarrassed. She quickly added, "Actually, I want to go down with young master." She had thought it through very clearly. If the two of them were to part ways now, it would take a lot of effort for her to break through the blockade of the 36 caves and 72 islands in her current state. Moreover, she would be exposed, and she would be caught in an endless pursuit. More importantly, she believed that Song Qing-shu was not an idiot who would commit suicide. This time, he would most likely have a way to land safely. If he and Tianshan Tonglao went through thick and thin together, in the future, the balance in his heart would become more and more biased towards Tianshan Tonglao. How could she be her opponent? Song Qing-shu was stunned. "You want to jump down with us?" Li Qiushui's smile froze. "Just based on my insignificant abilities, jumping down naturally means certain death, so I need Gongzi's help." Heavenly Mountain Tonglao sneered. "You do have some self-awareness." Li Qiushui retorted sarcastically. "You speak as if you would dare to jump down like this in your prime." Tianshan Tonglao immediately stopped talking. Indeed, she did not dare to jump down just like that. Song Qing-shu pondered for a moment. It was indeed inappropriate to leave her here. He would need her power to deal with Liu Liangzhua in the future. "Since you want to come, then come." Heavenly Mountain Tonglao sneered. Come on, come on. It's best if we die together." She had completely let go. At most, they would die together. It was not a bad thing to die together with her mortal enemy. Li Qiushui giggled and said, "Senior apprentice sister is older. If you don't die first, how would I dare to die?" Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was furious. Song Qing-shu was worried that they would quarrel again, so he hurriedly interrupted. All right. I still have many years to live. I don't want to die with you. Shut up, we're going down soon." At this time, Murong Fu and the others would reach the top of the mountain in a few breaths. Song Qing-shu knew that they could not delay any longer. He directly grabbed Li Qiushui's waist with one hand and Heavenly Mountain Tonglao with the other. They jumped down the cliff. Oh, why did they jump down the cliff? Murong Fu and the others rushed to the top of the mountain just in time to see the scene of the three jumping down the cliff. They were all dumbfounded. Previously, when they saw the bodies of Taoist Booping and the others halfway up the mountain, they knew that there were masters coming. They thought that there would be a hard fight when they reached the top of the mountain. Who knew that they would not fight and run away, but jump down the cliff? Wasn't this suicide? Young Master Murong, Sword God Mr. Zhua, your fame is too great. Those people are afraid of falling into our hands and being tortured, so they just jumped off the cliff. Haha, this was the most common opinion among the island masters and cave masters present. Murong Fu, however, had a shadow in his heart. From the injuries on Taoist Booping and the others, he could see that the person who killed them was very skilled in martial arts. Why would he commit suicide? Although he did not see their faces clearly, he saw the back of one of the women. He felt that she was a little familiar. It seemed to be the unfathomable old concubine. However, he immediately shook his head. If it was really that person, she would not jump down the cliff like this, nor would she mix with the people of Vulture Palace. Just to be sure, he purposely went to the edge of the cliff and looked down. He could only faintly see a few black shadows falling down. Only then did he completely relax. After Song Qing-shu jumped off the cliff, Li Qiushui and Tianshan Tonglao felt their bodies were floating. They could not control their bodies at all. They could only fall straight down, the wind whistling past their ears, even though it happened in a moment, but it seemed endless, as if they would never stop falling. Seeing the snow-covered hillside coming towards them, even though the two of them had experienced a lifetime of wind and rain, they were still so scared that their faces turned pale. They secretly thought that their lives were over. After falling like this for a while, Song Qing-shu used his arm to clamp Tianshan Tonglao down. His other hand swung down with a palm force, causing the snow on the side of the valley to rustle. However, this way, the speed of the few of them had obviously slowed down. It's no use. How can the palm force slow down at such a fast speed? Li Qiushui's face was deathly pale, thinking that her life was over. But suddenly, her eyes widened because she saw the other party throw out a few palms, and after reducing his speed a little, he directly adjusted his posture and stood on the cliff wall to run, as if he was walking on flat ground. How is this possible? Tianshan Tonglao was also shocked. This kind of qing gong was too shocking. Song Qingshu smiled. This was the qing gong that he learned when he first learned Taishan Sutra. It had the effect of ignoring gravity to a certain extent. In the past, he used to walk on the streets, and now he could step on the almost vertical cliff as if he was walking on flat ground. This was all because of this amazing qing gong. After all, Tianshan Tonglao was someone who had personally fought with Song Qingshu. Naturally, she knew how amazing his kung fu was. Thus, she was the first to recover from the shock. Seeing that Li Qiushui was still at a loss with her mouth wide open, she stretched out her palm to slap her. She had a good plan. She knew that if it were any other time, with her current kung fu, she would only be humiliating herself by attacking Li Qiushui. She couldn't hurt her at all. However, they were in midair now. As long as she could hit her down, she would be crippled even if she didn't die. Thinking of Li Qiushui's paralyzed appearance on the bed, she couldn't help but want to laugh. As expected, Li Qiushui did not expect that she would suddenly attack and suffered a great loss in the first exchange. She cried out in alarm and fell down. Fortunately, Song Qingshu's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed on her belt and did not cause a disaster. "What are you doing?" Song Qingshu was also a little displeased. The two women were really like hell when they met. Their attacks were vicious, far more than when Zhou Zhuo and Zhao Min were together. Chapter 1789. Good. Eldest senior sister, you're doing very well. Li Qiushui had just recovered from the shock. She looked at Heavenly Mountain Tonglao and gnashed her teeth. But she also knew that she couldn't kill Heavenly Mountain Tonglao as long as Song Qingshu was here. She could only suppress the jealousy in her heart for the time being, but her words still revealed her uncontrollable killing intent. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao didn't care at all. "Of course I'm doing very well." "Shut up." Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. It was said that 3 women made a scene, but there were only 2 women here. Feeling his anger, the 2 women looked at each other, snorted, and turned their heads away at the same time. After all, Lone Dragon Peak was not a bottomless abyss. Not long after, Song Qingshu brought the 2 of them to the foot of the mountain. The 2 girls raised their heads and looked at the towering mountain peak. Both of them were filled with lingering fear. "Well, I don't want to deal with those people from the 36 caves and 72 islands anymore. Let's find a safe place to settle down," Song Qingshu said. Initially, Jiatan Temple was a good place, but he didn't want to lead these 2 old witches to Yelu Nanxian and Mu Wanqing's side, who knew what would happen next. A safe place. Li Qiushui pondered for a moment, then her eyes lit up. "Why don't we go back to the Western Xia Imperial Palace?" Heavenly Mountain Tonglao immediately objected. She had never agreed with him. "That's your territory. I won't go there." Song Qingshu looked at Li Qiushui thoughtfully. "The current Imperial Palace isn't the same as before. Li Liangzhua is looking for you all over the world. Why do one go back now?" Li Qiushui smiled faintly. A few days ago, he dug 3 feet into the ground and searched the Imperial Palace. It was indeed dangerous to return at that time, but how would he expect that I would return? As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao's eyes also lit up. She finally remembered that Western Xia was no longer a place where Li Qiushui could hide the truth. If she returned to the Imperial Palace, not only would she not be in danger, but she could also secretly inform Li Liangzhua and ask him to deal with that bitch. Song Qingshu nodded. "That's right. Now that Li Liangzhua is searching the world, there are spies and soldiers everywhere. It might not be as safe as the palace." Even though he was not afraid of those elites from Class 1 Hall, he was someone who hated trouble the most. If he could avoid trouble, he would do so. After reaching a consensus, the 3 of them set off for the Imperial Palace. Even the lofty palace walls of the southern Song, Qing, and Jin dynasties could not stop Song Qingshu, let alone the low palace walls of the Western Xia dynasty. Although it was daytime and he had two people who were holding him back, he still snuck in silently. Young Master's Qigong can be said to be the best in the world. Li Qiushui praised from the bottom of her heart. Originally, she knew wave-treading subtle steps. Looking at the whole world, she had never been convinced by anyone in terms of lightness skills. Until today, she had been continuously stimulated. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao sneered. No matter how much you flatter him, he won't like you. Li Qiushui was instantly enraged. Do you have to argue with me? Are you done or not? Song Qingshu was also angry. If the two young girls were arguing, he would have some appreciation, but when he thought of their age, they really lacked beauty. Li Qiushui is familiar with the Imperial Palace. Let's find a place for us to stay. Although the most dangerous place was the safest place, they could not blatantly find a room in the Imperial Palace to stay. Li Qiushui thought for a moment and said, originally, the Cold Palace is a good place, but Li Liangzhua has always been meticulous. Maybe he also left some eyes and ears there. Right, we could go to the ice cellar in the Imperial Palace. Ice cellar? Song Qingshu had a strange expression. Was this the power of the plot? Why did it become the same as the encounter of the little monk Shuju in the original work? Was it going to be a scene of a girl dreaming of a boy? What's wrong with the ice cellar? Li Qiushui also looked nervous. Now that Song Qingshu had used his absolute strength to convince her, she was afraid of making him unhappy. Song Qingshu came back to his senses and hurriedly replied, no, the ice cellar is very good. Tianshan Tonglao thought that the bitch probably saw that her martial arts had not recovered and wanted to use the cold energy in the ice cellar to deal with her. However, she had always been strong. Although she had guessed the other's intention, she was not willing to admit defeat and did not refute. With Li Qiushui leading the way, the group soon came to a large stone house. They saw that the walls of the stone house were made of large stones that were 4 or 5 feet square. They were abnormally thick, and the door was made of a row of 8 pine trees that were cut in half and nailed together. Li Qiushui said to Song Qingshu, young master, please open this iron door. I am now seriously injured and most likely won't be able to open it. Tianshan Tonglao, who was at the side, curled her lips and said, pretending again. Song Qingshu walked forward and held the large iron ring on the door. He opened the door and felt that the door was really heavy. It was indeed difficult for an ordinary person to open it. Worried that they would be discovered by the patrolling guards, the 3 of them quickly went through the door. Song Qingshu closed the door again. They continued to walk forward. After the main door, there was another door. A gust of cold air seeped out from the door. The weather was getting warmer. Although there was still snow on the peak, the ice on the flat ground had long melted and the flowers were blooming. However, there was a thin layer of white frost on the door of the inner door. Under Li Qiushui's guidance, Song Qingshu walked forward and pushed the door. It slowly opened. It was only a gap of about a foot, but a gust of cold air rushed out. Pushing the door open, they saw that it was filled with sacks of rice and wheat. The height of the sack was connected to the roof. It was obviously a granary. On the left side, there was a narrow passage. Song Qingshu was stunned. Isn't it a nice cellar? Why is it a granary? Li Qiushui smiled. Young master, you misunderstood. These sacks are not filled with grain, but with cotton. The main purpose is to prevent the cold air from escaping from the ice cellar. At the same time, it also prevents the heat from coming in from the outside. I see. Song Qingshu nodded his head. He remembered that when he was young, he had seen people who sold popsicles with baskets on their backs. They would often cover the baskets with a layer of quilt. When he was young, he found it strange that the popsicles would melt. It was only later, when he grew up, that he understood the reason. Once the 2 doors were closed, the inside of the warehouse became pitch black. They couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. Now that Song Qingshu could see, it didn't affect him much. They directly entered from the left side. The deeper they went, the stronger the cold air became. By this time, Tonglao had already lit up her torch. In a split second, a strange scene appeared in front of the 3 people's eyes. They saw that all around them, there were large, square-cut chunks of ice. The light from the torch shone on the ice chunks. Sometimes it was green, sometimes it was blue. It was very strange. Li Shui said, "Let's go down." She held onto the ice and led the way. She took a few turns among the ice and walked down a big hole in the corner of the room. Song Qingshu followed behind her and saw that there was a row of stone stairs at the bottom of the hole. After they walked down the stone stairs, there was another room filled with ice. He could not help but be shocked. This design is quite ingenious. By the looks of it, there should be another level to this ice storage. As expected, there was another big stone room at the bottom of the second level, and it was also filled with ice. Li Shui brought out an oil lamp from somewhere and sat down after lighting it. She said, "We've entered the third level. No matter how smartly Liangzhua is, he might not be able to find us." As she spoke, she let out a long sigh. All this while, she looked very calm on the surface, but she was actually very anxious in her heart. Li Liangzhua had Class 1 Hall, Kong Tong's sect, and Spirit Vulture Palace's help. He could be said to have as many elites as there were clouds in the sky. If they wanted to avoid the eyes and ears of the elites when they entered the inner courtyard of the palace, half of them had to be vigilant and cautious, and the other half had to rely on luck. It was only at this moment that she felt slightly at ease. "I'll go outside and look for some blankets and cushions. We can't just sleep on the ice when the time comes, right?" Li Shui rested for a while before standing up. Song Qingshu frowned. "I don't intend to stay here for long." He came out this time to instigate Spirit Vulture Palace to fight against Li Liangzhua. Now that he had Heaven Mountain Maiden under his control, he was halfway to success. However, if he delayed any longer and allowed Murong Fu to lead the people from the 36 caves and 72 islands to fight against Spirit Vulture Palace, the losses would be great. Li Shui smiled sweetly. "It's getting late. You don't have to be in a hurry to go anywhere. No matter what, you need a rest for a night, right?" Song Qingshu thought about it and agreed with her. When he saved Heaven Mountain Maiden on Lone Dragon Peak, it was dawn, and he was delayed on the mountain for a while. In the end, he came down and rushed to Lingzhou City, which was 200 miles away. He also avoided the pursuers and the palace guards along the way. It was already evening outside. Moreover, he had a question in his mind. He could use the night to investigate it. However, Li Shui's smile, just now, seemed to contain an inexplicable meaning. He did not know what she was planning, but he did not take it to heart. Now that his martial arts cultivation had reached this level, he could completely ignore her crafty schemes. "I'll go find something to eat too." Heaven Mountain Maiden stood up as well. "Aren't you afraid that I'll take the opportunity to kill you?" Li Shui asked with a faint smile. Heaven Mountain Maiden looked at her, and then at Song Qingshu. "This brat still needs me. You won't be able to live even if you kill me." She was, after all, experienced. Now that she had regained her composure, she knew that Song Qingshu had helped her along the way because he had a favor to ask. Li Shui smiled. "I won't kill you for Master's sake, but I'm afraid that you'll inform Li Liangzhua to betray me." Heaven Mountain Maiden shook her head. "I did have that thought in the beginning, but I understand now. Li Liangzhua is a scheming and ruthless person. If I'm in my normal state, I can naturally work with him. But if I go to him in my current state, I'll be walking right into his trap. He'll take the opportunity to take over the Vulture Palace, and I'll die." Li Shui was startled. "Eldest senior sister, I realize that I've always underestimated your intelligence." "What did you say?" Heaven Mountain Maiden's eyebrows were raised. "That's enough." Song Qingshu stopped them in time. "Li Shui, you go. You stay here." After Li Shui left, Heaven Mountain Maiden said impatiently, "Brat, why do you want me to stay?" Song Qingshu said calmly, "You're my captive now. Be nice, or I can't guarantee what I'll do." "You." Heaven Mountain Maiden opened her mouth, but thought of her current situation. She snorted and did not provoke him further. "Why did you keep me here?" Chapter 1790. What did you say? Tianshan Tonglau's first reaction was that she misheard him. Song Qingshu repeated, "I said take off your clothes." "Bastard, I'm going to kill you." Tianshan Tonglao exploded on the spot. She screamed and rushed over. Unfortunately, she had not fully recovered and her hands and legs were short. When Xiao Luo's arm pressed down on her forehead, she could not move an inch forward. She could only bare her fangs and claws, but she could not even touch Xiao Luo's clothes. Song Qingshu frowned. What are you thinking? I'm just checking your body. It would have been better if he had not spoken. Once he spoke, Heavenly Mountain Tonglau's face instantly turned red. She was obviously furious. Looking at her threatening expression, Song Qingshu had a strange look on his face. You're already an old woman. Don't tell me you're still shy. Of course I'm not shy. Tianshan Tonglao raised her head and answered subconsciously. She quickly realized that something was wrong, so she quickly changed her words. It's not about being shy. It's no woman would take off her clothes in front of a man, no matter how old she is. Bastard, if you don't tell me the whole story, I'll drag you down with me, even if I have to risk my life. Tianshan Tonglao said fiercely. Heaven Mountain Tonglao said fiercely. However, they had known each other for a long time, and she knew his character. Although he liked to flirt, he wasn't a despicable pervert. There must be a reason why he said that. Song Qingshu hesitated. I just have a question that I need to verify. What question? You need me to take off my clothes to verify it. Tianshan Tonglao felt white smoke coming out of her head. This, Song Qingshu stuttered. It's meaningless to say it now. You might think I'm crazy, but I'm really curious. I need to verify it before I decide whether to tell you or not. Tianshan Tonglao was so angry that she laughed. I have to take off my clothes for you to see for a reason that you can't explain? Do you usually use this kind of lame excuse to deceive those little girls? Yes, Song Qingshu answered seriously. Those girls are much more obedient than you. If I ask them to take off their clothes, they will definitely do it. Tianshan Tonglao's expression froze. At this moment, a tender laughter rang out. What's there to see about a wimpy kid? If young master wants to see, you can look for big sister. It turned out that Li Qiushui had already returned at this time. She was very familiar with the imperial palace and quickly went out to find bedding and other things. She returned just in time to see this scene. Bah, a bitch and a dog will last forever. Tianshan Tonglao spat on the ground. Do you have some misunderstanding about the word sister? Song Qingshu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, since the other party had already returned, it was indeed not suitable for him to undergo that examination again. Ever since she heard his strange request, Heaven Mountain Tonglao felt more and more uneasy around Song Qingshu. She said, I'm on the upper floor to rest. After that, she took a roll of bedding from Li Qiushui and walked up with a gloomy face. After she left, Li Qiushui laid out the bedding and said with a smile, I didn't expect Gongzi to like this. Song Qingshu's face darkened. It's not what you think. At the same time, he fell into deep thought. Heaven Mountain Tonglao would definitely not agree to his method of examination. However, he couldn't let go of the doubt in his heart. What should he do? Gongzi saved me from Grand Senior Sister's hands in the main hall. This time, you saved Grand Senior Sister's hands again. Which side are you on? I really don't understand, Li Qiushui asked gently. Song Qingshu replied, You don't have to think so much. I saved you to deal with Li Liangzhua. As for the reason why I saved Heaven Mountain Tonglao, you don't have to worry about it. Li Qiushui giggled. Even if Gongzi doesn't say, I can guess it. It's most likely because of her vulture palace. Song Qingshu snorted. Sometimes, when a woman is too smart, even the heavens will be jealous of her beauty. Unexpectedly, Li Qiushui laughed instead of being shocked. So in Gongzi's eyes, I am still considered a beauty. Along the way, you've been so kind to Grand Senior Sister, but so cold to me. You made me think that I am too ugly to look at. Song Qingshu was startled. He also realized that his attitude along the way was indeed a little problematic. Perhaps it was because of the rumors about Li Qiushui's past lifestyle that he was unhappy and unknowingly revealed a look of disgust. Li Qiushui didn't want to make him feel bad and changed the topic. Actually, with Gongzi's martial arts, it's not difficult to take Li Liangzhua's life. Why are you so troubled? Song Qingshu looked at her with a half smile. You want to instigate me to kill Li Liangzhua and then reap the benefits? Li Qiushui's expression changed slightly. She hurriedly said, Gongzi misunderstood. I'm just curious. Song Qing-shu then said, It's easy to kill him, but what benefits does it bring me? Hearing his words, Li Qiushui couldn't help but ponder. Go up and treat your injuries. I also need a rest. Song Qing-shu sent Li Qiushui away. He was really a little afraid. This woman was so old, but her appearance was no different from a young married woman. She also had a seductive aura and would occasionally seduce him. Even though he didn't want anything to happen between them, he wasn't very firm when it came to love. If he was impulsive, how would he face Li Qingluo and Wang Yuyan in the future? Seeing him ask her to leave, Li Qiushui didn't continue to stay. She smiled and said a few words before walking up. Then I will go to the first floor. If Gongzi needs anything, you can find me. Song Qingshu's heart suddenly moved. Wait, I do have something that I need your help with. Gongzi, please speak. If I can do it, I will not refuse. Li Qiushui looked at him with a smile. Don't agree so quickly. Song Qingshu laughed. I want to learn your soul-searching technique. What conditions do you have? I can exchange my martial arts with you. After Run Ying disappeared in Lin City, he hated himself for not knowing this martial art. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so difficult to find her. He thought that if he met Li Qiushui, he must learn this martial art. But when he really met Li Qiushui this time, he almost forgot. Hearing his request, Li Qiushui was a little startled, but she quickly smiled. I was wondering what it was. This soul-searching technique is just a small trick. How can it compare to Gongzi's divine martial art? It just so happens that I haven't had the time to repay Gongzi for saving my life. If Gongzi doesn't mind, I can teach this martial art to Gongzi to repay you. Hearing her say this, Song Qingshu didn't insist. Soon, Li Qiushui told him the incantation and the tricks of the soul-searching technique. Song Qingshu memorized it and soon learned it well. Seeing this, Li Qiushui was very surprised. There are many talented people in our Xiaoyao sect, but I've never heard of someone like Gongzi who can learn it so quickly. Song Qingshu smiled. It's just a general rule. Of course, he wouldn't tell her that he was cheating. All right, Gongzi, take your time to study it. I will leave first. Li Qiushui complimented him for a while before leaving with a face full of amazement. Song Qingshu then sat cross-legged on the bed that she made and began to figure out the mystery of this martial art. When one's cultivation reached his level, cultivation was also sleeping, and sleeping was also cultivation. Chapter 1791. Now that they were at the lowest level of the ice cellar, in order not to be poisoned by carbon monoxide, Song Qingshu had long extinguished the candle flame. Fortunately, the huge ice blocks around them gave off a weak light. It was hard for normal people to see with the naked eye, but for people of his cultivation, it was enough. He could see that there was a person wrapped in the blanket that Li Qiushui was holding. Her hair was messy, and her shoulders were half exposed. It was a pity that he could not see her face clearly. However, he could see that she was petite and should not be very old. This was a very normal thing. The ancient times were not like the future. In the future, this age was like a junior high school student, but the beauties of the ancient imperial palace were usually of this age. Li Qiushui smiled charmingly. Originally, this concubine could personally accompany young master, but along the way, I know that young master's personality will not be interested in this concubine's beauty, so I specially went out to find a young palace maid. I guarantee that she will be as beautiful as the moon, pure and flawless. I hope that young master will kindly accept her. Song Qingshu shook his head. I don't need it. Carry her out. He had not reached the point where he could not sleep without a woman accompanying him. Moreover, it seemed that she had used some kind of force. So how could he agree? Li Qiushui had a troubled expression. This is difficult. If young master does not like her, this concubine will naturally take her away, but she knows where we are hiding. Young master also knows my personality. In order to be absolutely safe, I will definitely kill her. Such a pitiful little girl, and she is still at the age of a flower. She will go to the Yellow Springs before she can enjoy the prosperity of this world. You are not allowed to kill her. Song Qingshu frowned. Li Qiushui shook her head. Young master is too soft-hearted, so this concubine will tell you the truth. Even if I promise young master not to do anything, I will definitely find a chance to kill her later. Young master's martial arts are unparalleled, so you are naturally not afraid, but this concubine is currently heavily injured and cannot take any risks. If I secretly kill her, young master may not know. So young master does not want her now for your own peace of mind, but in reality, this is harming her. Song Qingshu knew that what she said was not false. With Li Qiushui's personality, she would definitely not let this little palace maid go. It was also impossible for her to watch over her all the time. If she secretly went to kill this little palace maid, no one would know. Seeing the hesitation on his face, Li Qiushui revealed a smile of success. Since that's the case, this concubine will leave her here with young master. She will serve young master well for the next few days. After we leave, she will be released. I also don't need to kill her. After that, without waiting for Song Qingshu to object, he placed the quilt that was wrapped around the little palace maid on the bed. Then, ignoring Song Qingshu's shout to stop him, he directly used the wave-like, subtle steps to leave. Song Qingshu was both angry and amused. This Li Qiushui was really unscrupulous in order to curry favor with him. How was such behavior different from a brothel keeper? Glancing at the little girl lying not far from him, Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. This world was really a place where human lives were worth less than dogs. Although there were all sorts of bad things in his previous world, the lives of ordinary people were much better than in this world. However, he was not the Virgin Mary. He could only do his best to protect her life and let her live a few days in peace. It was not really possible to let her go now. He began to practice the telepathic soul-searching technique again. Right now, he had already memorized the principles and application of this martial art. The only thing he lacked was practice. Halfway through, he almost couldn't help but experiment a few times, but his reason won out. If he used this martial art, it would cause too much of a commotion. The entire Spirit State City would know. At that time, wouldn't it be telling Lu Liangzhua that his group was nearby? I'm so cold. After an unknown amount of time, a jade-white arm suddenly stretched out from the quilt beside him. Perhaps it was because the ice cellar was too cold. She felt that Song Qingshu was the only warm object in the room. So, she instinctively leaned over to get warm. I'm so cold. The little palace maid only knew how to repeat this sentence. Her voice was incomparably delicate. She felt her whole body leaning over to him. As if she had found her savior, she tightly hugged him. Song Qingshu smelled a sweet fragrance. He knew that it was the body fragrance of the little palace maid. He couldn't help but frown. He reached out to try to push her away. Coincidentally, his hand touched the soft and slender shoulder. That soft and warm feeling made his heart skip a beat. Song Qingshu hurriedly gathered his thoughts. He directly channeled his internal energy into her body to drive away the cold. At the same time, he secretly clicked his tongue. If it was in his previous world, it would be at least 3 years. But in this world, all the beauties who entered the palace were at this age. In this feudal society, the emperors and nobles really knew how to enjoy themselves. Of course, he also understood that it was not appropriate to use the moral system of the future to judge these customs and history. While his imagination was running wild, the little girl's whole body was already pressed against him. Her mouth was still murmuring, "You're so warm here." Song Qingshu found that no matter where he tried to push her away, his hands were all soft and warm. Only then did he realize that Li Qiushui had directly taken off her clothes for her. That woman is really unscrupulous. Song Qingshu frowned, because he found that the little palace maid had not only been stripped naked, she had also taken an aphrodisiac. Now, she was half asleep and half awake. Moreover, she was being driven by an instinctive impulse. Song Qingshu was not a saint. He also had 7 emotions and 6 desires. Although he kept criticizing Li Qiushui's actions in his heart, his body's reaction was quite pleasurable. But the current him was not the same as before. Now he understood that it was easy to flirt, but extremely difficult to take responsibility. He was not like Duan Zhengchun, who flirted everywhere but did not take responsibility. He was not the kind of person who would pull up his pants and walk away. He thought of all the women he had. Even in Spirit State City, there was still Mu Wanxing and Yelu Nancian waiting for him. When the time came, he would bring another sister back to them. How sad would they be? Little girl, you're lucky to have met me today. Song Qingshu laughed bitterly. He gathered his chaotic emotions and began to circulate his energy to help the little palace made in his arms unblock the aphrodisiac in her body. These years, he had encountered such a situation many times. Relying on his mastery of the yin and yang qi, he found a familiar way to neutralize the aphrodisiac. His fingers pressed on various meridians in her body, slowly helping her unblock the agitated aphrodisiac. The two of them were so close, and the little palace maid was not wearing clothes. When he pressed on her meridians, it was inevitable that their skin would touch. But Song Qingshu's expression was solemn. He only thought of himself as a doctor who treated the sick and saved people. In his eyes, there was no difference between a man and a woman. Suddenly, Song Qingshu's expression changed. He sensed the abnormality in her body. You know martial arts? At this moment, the little palace maid in his arms suddenly pressed on the acupoints on his body. Previously, her hair had been messy, and her sweat had soaked her black hair and covered most of her face. In addition, the light on the third floor of the cellar was almost non-existent, so he couldn't see her complete face clearly. Chapter 1792. Song Qingshu had never expected this. He had thought that Li Qiushui had randomly found a little palace made in the palace. After all, the palace did not lack pretty little palace maids. He did not expect that this little palace maid was actually Heavenly Mountain Tonglao. At this moment, Heaven Mountain Tonglao's face was completely red. It was unknown whether it was because she was embarrassed or angry. She was just practicing when Li Qiushui suddenly stopped her. She thought that Li Qiushui was going to kill her, but he just took off her clothes and fed her a pink pill. Her first thought was that it was a poison like the bone-breaking pill. But after a while, she did not show any signs of being poisoned. Instead, her body became more and more human. Li Qiushui looked at her with a strange and playful smile. Senior apprentice sister, your junior apprentice sister is so considerate of you. I know you've been lonely all your life, so I'll let you have a taste of a man. Then she was sent to Song Qingshu's bed. Heaven Mountain Tonglao wanted to stop him, but the drug in her body took effect. She fell into a semi-conscious state and only had some instinctive reactions. It wasn't until Song Qingshu used his internal energy to disperse the drug in her body that she slowly woke up and realized that she was indiscriminately entwined with his body. She simply wanted to die and wished that there was a hole in the ground to hide in. She quickly noticed that Song Qingshu did not recognize her. She was conflicted and decided to continue pretending to be unconscious. She pretended that nothing had happened and wanted to get through the night first. However, pretending like this was easier said than done. Although the other party's actions were very gentlemanly and did not violate her and only helped her detoxify, she had never been so close to a man in her life, let alone naked. Feeling the other party's somewhat scorching hand slowly brushing over her acupoints, her entire body almost trembled. Just when she did not know what to do, she heard that he found out that she knew martial arts. She knew that she could not pretend anymore and quickly sealed his acupuncture points. How could it be you? Song Qingshu stared in shock at the little girl in front of him. He gradually understood. It was most likely that Li Qiushui had done this on purpose. He hated eldest senior sister for always claiming to be a virgin in front of him, so he thought of ways to destroy her chastity so that he could laugh at her afterwards. Heaven Mountain Tonglao bit her lips and did not speak. She looked around for clothes to cover her body, but Li Qiushui had already thrown his clothes somewhere. How could she find them? She could only wrap the blanket around her body. Actually, you don't have to be so angry. After all, nothing happened between us. Song Qing-shu wasn't worried about his situation at all. Instead, he tried to comfort him. Tianshan Tonglau's internal energy had not recovered yet, so she could not seal his acupoint just now. He only pretended that his acupoint was sealed because he did not want to embarrass himself. Cut the sarcasm. Heaven Mountain Tonglao glared at him and muttered, "You saw everything, but nothing happened." Song Qing-shu was also a little helpless. He thought to himself, "What do you think I want to do with an old woman like you?" Suddenly, he thought of something and couldn't help but say, "Do you know why I asked you to take off your clothes before? You're still talking about it?" Heaven Mountain Tonglao gritted her teeth. She even began to consider whether she should bite his neck to suck his blood like she did with Taoist pooping. "Because I feel that your body's meridians are not like a 90-year-old woman's, but more like a 10-year-old girl's. So I wanted to examine it carefully." Song Qing-shu paused and then added, "Just now, by coincidence, I can feel that your meridians are no different from a normal 10-year-old girl's." "Nonsense. I would have regained my youth after 30 years of practicing this martial art." Heaven Mountain Tonglao was still a little angry. "No." Song Qing-shu shook his head. "If you really regained your youth because of practicing martial arts, I should be able to see some abnormalities in your meridians. But your meridians are no different from a normal girl's. I can't see any clues at all." Heaven Mountain Tonglao sneered and said, "What do you want to say? Are you going to say that I'm a 10-year-old girl?" Song Qing-shu was also a little uncertain. "Although it's a little unbelievable, the characteristics of your body are indeed so." "It's nonsense," Heaven Mountain Tonglao said angrily. "How can I not know how old I am? How can that bitch Li Qiushui not recognize me? I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. I'm going to find that bitch and settle this account." After that, she angrily ran to the upper level of the ice house. But because she was wrapped in a quilt, she almost fell several times. Watching her leave like she was running away, Song Qing-shu also fell into doubt. Strange, what's going on? At this time, he thought that it would be great if people had growth rings like trees. Then it would be easy to determine her actual age, or there was an x-ray machine that could measure her bone age. While he was thinking, not long after, Heaven Mountain Tonglao ran down again. She walked straight to Song Qing-shu and stared at him. Song Qing-shu was stunned. "Why did you come back?" Heaven Mountain Tonglao said with hatred. "That bitch seems to know that I'm going to take revenge on her, so she's not on the first level. I don't know where she's hiding." Hearing her words, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. Running away after doing something bad was the self-cultivation of a bad person. Li Qiushui was also smart. Forget it. Even if you find her, you can't beat her with your current martial arts. Song Qing-shu comforted her. "I know." Heaven Mountain Tonglao was also depressed. She suddenly turned her head and stared at him. "Take off your clothes." This time, it was Song Qing-shu's turn to be dumbfounded. He had made this request to her not long ago. He didn't expect the tables to turn so quickly. Seeing his expression, Heaven Mountain Tonglao's face suddenly turned red. She said angrily, "What are you thinking about?" "It's mainly because that bitch Li Qiushui threw my clothes away. I'm going out. I can't be dressed like this." Looking at her wrapped in the quilt with half of her shoulders exposed, Song Qing-shu also felt that it was inappropriate to go out like this. At the same time, he asked curiously, "What are you going to do? You haven't recovered your martial arts. If the palace guards are alerted, you'll be in danger." "Although my martial arts haven't recovered, I'm very familiar with the palace. The palace guards are nothing." Hearing that he was concerned about her, Heaven Mountain Tonglao's face softened a little. "Anyway, I have something to do. Are you going to take off your clothes?" Song Qing-shu said helplessly, "My acupoint was sealed by you. How can I take off my clothes?" Although he could move, if he was exposed now, who knew if she would fly into a rage out of humiliation? He was most afraid of trouble, so he simply continued to pretend. Heaven Mountain Tonglao bit her lips and finally gave up the idea of unsealing his acupoint. "Okay, I'll take off your clothes." Then she climbed onto the bed and half knelt beside him. She began to undress him. Hey, is this considered flirting with a man? Through her messy hair, he could vaguely see the snow-white skin on her shoulders. Song Qing-shu said playfully, Chapter 1793. What did I see? Song Qing-shu wisely pretended to be confused. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao tightened her collar again. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. You know what you saw? Song Qing-shu pouted. You're just a little girl. The places that should be big aren't big. And the places that should be small? No, they're all small. What's there to see? Ah! Heaven Mountain Tong Lao felt like she was going crazy. However, she also felt strange. Usually, she would kill the people from the 36 caves and 72 islands if they did not go her way. However, this person in front of her had angered her several times, but she did not really want to kill him. All right, if you get too worked up, the blanket will fall off again. Song Qing-shu kindly reminded her. I'll deal with you later. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao thought for a long time and still did not know how to deal with this person. She stopped thinking and went over to him. She quickly took off his clothes and hid behind a giant ice block. She started to change her clothes. Song Qing-shu could not help but laugh. Hey, it's dark in the ice cellar. You can't see anything. Why are you hiding? You're full of bad ideas. With your level of inner force, you can even see in the dark. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao's inner force allowed her to see in the dark. Although it was not as good as when there was light, it was not a problem for her to see things in the dark. Her opponent's martial arts was higher than hers, so it was easier for him to see people and things in the dark. She dashed out from behind the ice. She had already changed into Song Qing-shu's clothes. Unfortunately, they were a little big, but she rolled up the sleeves and trouser legs, which made them look good. She looked delicate and charming, but also a bit more heroic. Hey, you better find me a set of clothes when you get out. It's uncomfortable to be naked like this, Song Qing-shu said as he saw her walking out. Heaven Mountain Tong Lao wrinkled her nose. She did not answer. She just left him with a beautiful back view. Song Qing-shu was confused. Did this mean yes or no? However, sometimes she was quite cute when she was arrogant. She was so cute, but why was she a 90-something-year-old woman? Song Qing-shu was a little depressed, but when he recalled what he found when he checked her body, he fell into deep thought. Is she really in her 90s? However, his thoughts were soon interrupted by the cold air around him. He was at the bottom of the ice house, and all his clothes had been robbed by Tianshan Tong Lao. Even with his kung fu, he couldn't help but shiver. He hurriedly circulated his internal energy to resist the cold. Only when his internal energy circulated did his body warm up. After an unknown period of time, footsteps came from the stairs again. Song Qing-shu looked towards the direction of the sound and saw Tianshan Tong Lao coming in with a quilt. She was petite and seemed to be struggling to carry the quilt. What are you doing? Song Qing-shu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He wanted to ask him to bring back a set of clothes, but he ended up bringing back a blanket. Wasn't there another blanket here? As if she knew what he was thinking, Tianshan Tong Lao walked over and threw down the blanket in her hands. She picked up the one on the stone bed and said, I brought it to exchange with you. I'm taking this one with me. Song Qing-shu immediately realized that she was naked and wrapped in the blanket just now. She was probably too embarrassed to let other men use it. All right, I thought you want to find trouble with Li Qiushui. Song Qing-shu smiled. Tianshan Tong Lao snorted and said, I'm not stupid. If I go to that bitch now, I'll only be humiliating myself. So you just let it go? It's not like you. Song Qing-shu asked curiously. How is that possible? Tianshan Tong Lao glanced at the blanket on the bed, and a trace of pride flashed in her eyes. Don't worry, I've already thought of another way to take revenge on her. What way? Song Qing-shu asked. You'll know in a moment. Tianshan Tong Lao revealed a meaningful smile. Then, before he could ask her to stay, she quickly left as if she was guilty. While Song Qing-shu was confused, a voice suddenly came from beside him. Where am I? Why is it so cold? He jumped in fright and turned around to look. Only then did he realize that there was a person hiding under the blanket. Looking at the messy black hair and the faintly discernible snow-white skin, it seemed that the person was also completely naked. The first thought that came to his mind was that the person was Li Qiushui. Tianshan Tong Lao was trying to take revenge on him for what he did to her before. but he quickly denied this possibility. Firstly, although Li Qiushui was also seriously injured, her martial arts were obviously higher than hers. Naturally, she would not be captured. Secondly, the voice just now was clear and delicate. It was the voice of a girl, not Li Qiushui. Song Qingshu frowned and asked, "Who are you?" Although he could see at night, he still had to follow the laws of physics. In the dark of the third floor of the ice cellar, he could only see the outline of the person. It was difficult to see the person's face clearly. Otherwise, it would not have taken him so long to recognize Tianshan Tonglao. The girl said, I'm so cold. Who are you?" As she said that, she crawled out from the blanket and leaned on Song Qingshu. Her body was soft and smooth, and he could faintly feel that it was exquisite. It was not something that Tianshan Tonglao could compare with. There was an orchid-like fragrance on her body, and at the same time, there was a hint of sweetness. This fragrance was completely different from the one on Tianshan Tonglao. They both had their own advantages. It was hard to say which one was better. Song Qingshu felt that her breathing was a little abnormal. He reached out and touched her hand. Her skin was soft and smooth, but he soon frowned because he noticed that she was also under the influence of the aphrodisiac that Tianshan Tonglao had used on her. "What's going on?" Song Qingshu was puzzled. Tianshan Tonglao was framed by Li Qiushui. Why didn't she seek revenge on Li Qiushui? Could it be that she noticed that he was suffering and wanted to thank him for not doing anything to her? But this thought flashed through his mind. If Tianshan Tonglao was so understanding, she would not be Tianshan Tonglao. Suddenly, he thought of Shuju's experience in the original novel. He lifted the girl's chin and gently brushed away the messy hair on her face. Although he could not see her face clearly, she was as beautiful as a painting. She looked somewhat similar to Li Qiushui. It was Princess Yinchuan Li Qinglu. Isn't she under house arrest? How did she get caught by Tianshan Tonglao? Song Qingshu was curious. Li Qinglu's martial arts were not weak. How could Tianshan Tonglao subdue her in her current state? While he was puzzled, the girl moaned and directly hooked her arms around his neck. Her whole body stuck to him. Song Qingshu felt that the girl's breath smelled like orchids. Bursts of sweet fragrance assaulted him. His heart beat faster and his body trembled. He said in a trembling voice, "What the hell did I do today? Do I have to be a prostitute twice in a row and endure this kind of torture?" Li Qinglu's eyes were full of tears. "I'm so cold, but my heart is so warm." Chapter 1794. Song Qingshu swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He thought to himself, "Eldest miss, do you really think I'm not a man?" As if she wanted to verify it, Li Qinglu directly threw herself into his arms. She moaned and moved closer to his lips. The two of them kissed. Song Qingshu's lower abdomen was already a ball of fire that couldn't be extinguished because of the previous incident with Tonglao. Now that he was being teased by this stunning girl, although he still had some rationality left, he was a man in his prime. In addition, he had practiced the Joy Zen, so his needs were much more than ordinary people. Now that he was hugging the girl's soft body and smelling that inexplicably alluring sweet fragrance, how could he still resist? His hands subconsciously hugged Li Qinglu tighter and tighter. For a moment, his mind was wandering and he didn't know where he was. The girl was even more passionate, treating Song Qingshu as her lover. After an unknown amount of time, the fire in Song Qingshu's body gradually extinguished. He couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. "I-oh." While thinking about how to deal with the aftermath, he was about to get up. Who knew that Li Qinglu was still hugging him tightly and said in a soft voice, Don't leave me." Song Qingshu thought of her usual cold and aloof appearance. He didn't expect that deep inside. She was such a timid and helpless little girl. His heart couldn't help but sway. He immediately hugged her in his arms and loved her tenderly. The two of them were entangled together. After another hour, the girl opened her mouth. Her voice was soft and sweet. "Good brother, who are you?" In fact, at the beginning, she was indeed a little dazed. Later on, she gradually woke up and found that she was entangled with a man. She almost fainted. She instinctively wanted to push him away in anger, but her whole body was soft and powerless. She gradually fell into a kind of negative mood of despair. However, she soon realized that the man on top of her was extremely gentle. He was completely different from the beast she had imagined. Gradually, she became a little aroused. She had always had the support of the old princess and her father, as well as the emperor's love. It could be said that she had always been protected in the palm of their hands. But in the past few days, everything had changed. The emperor's uncle who loved her the most had died. The old princess had escaped with serious injuries, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Her father had also been secretly executed. She had suddenly changed from a proud daughter of heaven to a position that was even lower than a palace maid. Although she still tried to provoke Murong Fu to go to the Vulture Palace to try to turn the tables, she also knew that the chances of success were very small, so she fell into a kind of incomparable despair. At this moment, she suddenly felt tender love and gentleness again. Although her rationality felt that it was inappropriate, she was still somewhat immersed in this sweetness. In fact, when Li Qinglu woke up, Song Qingshu keenly felt it. He didn't know how to end it, but he found that the other party not only didn't blame him at all, but became even more enthusiastic, which really surprised him. Gradually, he seemed to understand something. No wonder Li Qinglu in the original book still loved Su Zhu to death after being tortured like that. At that time, he didn't understand what was going on. Now that he personally experienced it, he found that she most likely had a masochistic constitution or Stockholm Syndrome. That was why a princess would fall in love with a kidnapper. "Good brother, who are you?" Seeing him fall into silence, Li Qinglu asked sweetly again. Although her cultivation was not bad among the younger generation, she hadn't reached the realm of seeing things in the dark. Naturally, she couldn't see the appearance of the man beside her. Song Qingshu didn't know how to answer, but Li Qinglu let out a long sigh and said, "Could it be that I'm dreaming? But why would I have such a strange dream? It really makes me scared." And Song Qingshu curiously asked, "What is it?" Li Qinglu hugged his neck and softly said, "It's happiness." Then she put her right cheek on his left cheek. Song Qingshu only felt that her face was warm. He unconsciously reached out and hugged her slender waist. Li Qinglu said again, "Good brother, am I dreaming? If it is a dream, why do I clearly know that you are hugging me? I can touch your face, I can touch your chest, I can touch your arms." As she spoke, she gently caressed Song Qingshu's cheeks and chest. She continued, "If I'm not dreaming, why would I suddenly lose my clothes and come to this cold and dark place while I'm perfectly fine in this room? It is cold and dark here, but there is you. There is you waiting for me, taking care of me, taking care of me." When Song Qingshu heard her murmuring, he suddenly thought of the unimaginable changes and pressure she had suffered recently. No wonder she had this kind of reaction to escape from reality. When he thought of this, he felt heartache and pity at the same time. Li Qinglu softly said, "Usually I don't pay attention to men. Why is it that when I come to this place, I feel uncontrollable? Alas, if it is a dream, it is not like a dream. If it is not like a dream, it is like a dream." Song Qingshu thought that she had been drugged by Tong Lao, so of course her mind would be uncontrollable. At this moment, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Li Qiushui walked down and said with a smile, "Oh, when did my eldest martial sister become so sentimental? Usually men are like ants in your eyes, but now you are like a little bird asking for love. TSK, TSK, TSK. You should really let senior martial brother Wu Yazi see what you look like now." She came in from outside and didn't see Tong Lao on the second floor. She subconsciously thought that the two were still stuck to each other. There was no light in the ice cellar, and she was far away, so naturally she couldn't see what was going on. Hearing her words, Song Qingshu had a strange look on his face. He thought that she didn't know that the person had been changed. Li Qinglu stiffened and said with a trembling voice, "Old princess, is that you?" Usually, Li Qiushui was very fond of her appearance and felt that terms like imperial grandmother made her sound old. So Li Qinglu usually called her Tai Fei. "Qing, Lu?" Li Qiushui's smile instantly froze, and she asked in disbelief, "Old princess, is it really you?" Li Qinglu had been worried about her before. Now that she was reunited with her, she couldn't help crying tears of joy. Li Qiushui couldn't stay calm anymore. She hurriedly lit a match and saw her beloved granddaughter snuggling in Song Qingshu's arms. Her hair was messy and her face was flushed. Coupled with the messy bed sheets, there was a special smell in the air. As someone who had experienced it, how could Li Qiushui not know what had just happened? "You? Why are you here?" Li Qiushui was stunned. She was going to come in and ridicule Tianshan Tonglao, but she didn't expect that it was her granddaughter lying on the bed. She couldn't react for a moment. I don't know." Li Qinglu was about to cry. She even hoped that it was just a sweet dream. But how could she continue to deceive herself now? Suddenly, she thought of something and looked to the side with the help of the lighted fire. She saw a handsome face, which was strange and familiar at the same time. It turned out to be him. How could it be him? Chapter 1795. Li Qinglu was dumbfounded, and Li Qiushui was even more dumbfounded, but she quickly glared at Song Qingshu angrily. "Song, I didn't think you would do such a thing. I originally wanted to help you two get together, but why did you use your martial arts to do such a despicable thing?" She did have the thought of using her granddaughter to please Song Qingshu, but having the thought was one thing, and seeing her beloved granddaughter being bullied by another man with her own eyes was another. Moreover, what she had imagined was a formal marriage, not an illicit affair like this. As someone who had been through it, she was very clear that if they were officially married, it would only mean that their future status and the benefits they could bring were guaranteed. On the other hand, having an illicit relationship meant that there was a high chance that they would be abandoned. She was very clear about men's temperament of not cherishing what they had obtained. Song Qingshu opened his mouth. He wanted to explain, but didn't know what to say. Although he didn't capture Li Qinglu, he didn't have the willpower to refuse. In the end, it was his fault. "Qinglu, you're a girl. How can you be so shameless? Didn't you know how to resist?" Seeing her granddaughter bashfully lying in Song Qingshu's embrace, Li Qiushui was filled with anger. Of course, she knew that with the difference in martial arts between the two, even if Li Qinglu resisted, it would be useless. The reason why she deliberately said this was not to reprimand her granddaughter, but for Song Qingshu to hear. She only wanted to use this opportunity to fight for greater benefits. I don't know what happened either. My mind was in turmoil, and I couldn't help it. Li Qinglu had always been a little afraid of her unfathomable imperial grandmother. She hurriedly explained in a flustered voice, her voice even carrying a sob. Li Qiushui knew what happened as soon as she heard it, and couldn't help but be furious. "Song, you actually drugged her." Before Song Qingshu could explain, Tianshan Tonglau's mocking voice came from the stairs. "You know he has a good temper. That's why you dare to make a fuss here. Otherwise, with his unfathomable martial arts, would you dare to be so arrogant?" Li Qiushui turned around and saw it was her. She couldn't help but say angrily, "I don't have time to quarrel with you now. It's none of your business." Tianshan Tonglau's eyes fell on Song Qingshu and Li Qinglu. Seeing that they were naked, she quickly looked away and snorted. "It's none of my business? Who was the one who?" She suddenly stopped. This was too shameful, and she didn't want to mention it again. Li Qiushui suddenly realized and said angrily, "So it was you who did it." Tianshan Tong Granny sneered and said, "You can plot against me, but I can't take revenge. I really can't beat you now, and even if I can beat you, I won't send you to that stinky brat's bed. Not only will I not be able to take revenge on you, but I might even let you off easy. So after thinking about it, I can only find your granddaughter. In addition, I'm worried that the stinky brat will have the same bad habit as Lu Xiaohui and ruin Grandma's plan, so I deliberately fed your beautiful granddaughter medicine. If that stinky brat still refuses, I can only say that he is not a man." She felt a little guilty when she said this. She couldn't help but think that she was drugged too, but he held it back. Thinking of this, she admired him a little. "Ah!" Li Qinglu exclaimed. She had thought that it was just a beautiful dream, but who knew that there were all kinds of ugly plots and tricks behind it? She was just a victim. She fell from the clouds of happiness, and her whole body was on the verge of collapsing. "What's wrong with you?" Song Qing-shu hurriedly supported her. "Don't touch me." Li Qinglu shook off his arm as if she was scalded by fire. She curled up in the bed and cried, "Wu Xingyun, I'll kill you." Like a drop of water falling in a boiling oil, Li Qiushui was enraged when he saw his granddaughter crying. He used his qin gong and pounced on Tianshan Tonglao. Song Qing-shu was stunned. Tianshan Tonglao's real name was Wu Xingyun. He asked her a few times, but she didn't answer. Now, he finally got confirmation. Facing Li Qiushui's anger, Heaven Mountain Tonglao was already prepared. She laughed as she dodged. "I learned it from you. You took off all her clothes and drugged her with aphrodisiac. Speaking of which, it's all because of you that your granddaughter suffered." Li Qiushui's face darkened. She chased after her without saying a word. Unfortunately, Tianshan Tonglao made full use of the terrain in the ice cellar. Li Qiushui couldn't catch her in a short time. One of them was seriously injured, and the other lost her qinggong. But after a while, Tianshan Tonglao couldn't hold on anymore. Seeing that she was in danger, she couldn't help but shout, "Brat, I let you take advantage of me and enjoy all the women in the world. Now you're burning the bridge and watching me get bullied?" Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly, but he knew that Tianshan Tonglao couldn't hold on much longer. He stretched out his hand and used the green dragon's ingestion of water to pull her petite body over. Li Qiushui's attack missed. Seeing that it was Song Qing-shu who made the move, she gave up on attacking and asked, "Are you going to protect her?" Song Qing-shu frowned. "If you didn't mess around, this wouldn't have happened." Li Qiushui was speechless when she thought about how she took off Tianshan Tonglao's clothes and drugged her. "Are we just going to let it go? Are you going to bully my granddaughter for nothing?" "What bully?" I asked Song Qing-shu to save her. Tianshan Tonglao opened her mouth. Li Qiushui almost died of anger. She looked at the two people on the bed who were in a mess and said, "This is called saving." "Why didn't you ask him to save you?" Tianshan Tonglao blushed and snorted. "Do you think I'm like you who likes to fool around with handsome men?" Song Qing-shu did not know whether to laugh or cry. Was Tianshan Tonglao praising him? All right. Tianshan Tonglao saw that it was about time and said, "I did plan to use your granddaughter to take revenge on you. But when I got there, she had already been drugged. It was said that the emperor would come and enjoy it later. I took her out when the guards weren't paying attention. Do you think that's considered saving her?" "What?" Li Qiushui's expression changed. "Li Liangzhua is so crazy? He even wants to touch his own cousin?" Although Li Qinglu and Li Liangzhua were not biological siblings, their fathers were half-brothers. Their relationship could be said to be very close. Tianshan Tonglao curled her lips. As the saying goes, like father, like son. Li Yuanhao can forcefully take his brother's wife and daughter-in-law. It's nothing for Li Liangzhua to forcefully take his cousin. Song Qing-shu also nodded secretly. In fact, this kind of thing was not uncommon in the royal family, especially during the northern and southern dynasties. Those royal family members would be too embarrassed to meet people if they did not cause some trouble. The people of Xixiao were open-minded and did not have many scruples about these things. Li Qiushui looked at her granddaughter. Is what she said true? Li Qinglu's eyes were confused. She gradually recalled all the things that happened before, and her face turned pale. "I remember now. After drinking the fragrant tea that the palace maid brought, I became a little unconscious. I vaguely heard them talking about these things." Li Qiushui hit the ice beside her with her palm. Unfortunately, she had not recovered her power and could only hit some ice chips. Li Liangzhua has gone too far. He poisoned Qian Shun, and now he wants to touch Qinglu. I will definitely kill him in the future. Hearing her mentioning her father's death, Li Qinglu's heart was also stirred, and she could not help but cry again. Tianshan Tonglao was stunned. "Your son is dead?" Chapter 1796. Heaven Mountain Tonglao opened her mouth and wanted to add insult to injury. However, She remembered that she had lost her son in her old age. Even if they had a deep hatred, she could not say it. Li Qiushui sighed. After I returned to the palace, I went out to investigate and found out that Qian Shun was killed. Unfortunately, I have not recovered from my injuries and am unable to kill Li Liangzhua even if I wanted to. I remembered that his coup succeeded because of your help, so I decided to vent my anger on you first. Heaven Mountain Tonglao originally had a trace of sympathy, but when she heard her words, she sneered. You used underhanded means, and in the end, your retribution is on your granddaughter. Thinking that she was stripped naked, fed that drug, and thrown on his Song Qingshu's bed, she gritted her teeth in hatred. Unexpectedly, Li Qiushui said indifferently, "Is this retribution? I don't think it's a bad thing." As soon as she said this, everyone looked at her in confusion. They only heard her continue. If it weren't for today's incident, Clear Dew would have been defiled by Li Liangzhua, that enemy who killed his father. Moreover, with Li Liangzhua's temperament, it wouldn't take long for him to kill her after tasting her. He wouldn't allow such a woman who harbors hatred for him to hide by his side. Li Qinglu's face was pale. She knew that her grandmother was right. Thinking that she could not avenge her father and would be defiled by her enemy, it was better to do this. Thinking of this, she glanced at the man beside her and happened to meet his gaze. She was so scared that she quickly turned her face away. Her chest kept heaving up and down, and she was obviously extremely nervous. Seeing her reaction, Li Qiushui said, "How does young master plan to deal with this matter?" Song Qingshu also had a headache. He was indeed too impulsive before, but after being teased like that twice in a row, he was not a man if he could still endure it. However, this kind of thing was good for a while, but there would be a lot of trouble afterward. Seeing that he was silent, Li Qiushui said angrily, "What? Do you want to eat clean and not admit it?" Her words were so explicit that Li Qinglu finally could not stand it and couldn't help but say, "Tai Fei." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, "I naturally have to take responsibility. It's just that I don't have much of a relationship with the princess. I don't know if the princess is willing to let me take responsibility." The people of the grassland were open-minded to begin with, and it was common for women to remarry. The concept of chastity was also not like that of the Southern Song dynasty, where women often married a chicken and followed a dog for the rest of their lives. This time, it was Li Qiushui's turn to be surprised. "You didn't know each other before?" Song Qingshu replied, "I've met him once, but we don't have any deep friendship." After saying that, he suddenly realized that they were indeed not familiar with each other before, but their conversation just now was really deep. On the other side, Li Qinglu's face was also blushing. It was obvious that she was thinking the same thing. Li Qiushui asked doubtfully, "Then why did you help me before?" Previously, when she was rescued by him from the main hall and saw him rushing back to the main hall, she thought that he was going to rescue her granddaughter. Thus, she had been thinking of matchmaking the two of them. Song Qingshu explained, "It's a long story. I can only say that we have a common enemy." Li Qiushui nodded and then looked at her granddaughter. "Qinglu, what do you think?" Li Qinglu was also a little speechless at this time. She thought, "How can I answer this kind of question?" Her little face flushed, and after a long time, she replied in a low voice, "It's all up to the old princess." In fact, her first reaction was to refuse. After all, she had always been proud and did not want to belong to a man without knowing why. However, when she suddenly recalled some of the intimate scenes between them just now, she couldn't help blushing and her heart beating faster. Bursts of throbbing made her give such a tacit answer. Li Qiushui was also a little surprised. After all, based on her understanding of her granddaughter, she would probably leave freely. She was worried about how to persuade her, but unexpectedly, she acquiesced. This was exactly what she wanted. She hurriedly said to Song Qingshu, "In this case, I will give my baby granddaughter to you. You can't bully her in the future, or I." She was going to say some threatening words, but after thinking for a long time, she didn't know how to threaten, so she had to change her words. "Or even if I can't beat you, I will invite a lot of master friends to get even with you." On the side, Tianshan Tonglao sneered and said, Your bitch's friends are all useless gigolos. No matter how many of them you invite, they can't beat Song Qingshu's finger. She didn't know why. Seeing that Li Qiushui betrothed her granddaughter to Song Qingshu, she was very upset. After thinking about it, she could only explain it with a sense of crisis. After all, Song Qingshu was closer to her, and now he became Li Qiushui's grandson-in-law. In the future, if she and Li Qiushui had a conflict, he would naturally help them. Who said that my friends are all gigolos? Being exposed in front of Song Qingshu and her granddaughter, Li Qiushui also felt a little embarrassed. I can also invite. She thought for a long time, but still couldn't think of who to invite. Ding Chuanxiu, whom she was most familiar with, was dead, and the masters of Class 1 Hall had also changed sides. Even if she invited them, it would be useless to deal with people like Song Qingshu. Seeing that she couldn't say anything for a long time, Tianshan Tonglao said sarcastically, "You found that you have committed too many sins and are now alone, right?" "Who said that? I can still find Wu Yazi. He is my husband, and he will definitely help me." Li Qiushui was provoked by her, and subconsciously a person's name popped up in her mind. After saying it, she was shocked. She thought that she had forgotten him after so many years, but when she needed him the most, the first person she thought of was still that man. Bah! Tianshan Tonglao was angry. "When did Wu Yazi become your husband? You are the old princess of Xixia. He is my first husband." Li Qiushui was embarrassed to say that she was abandoned by Wu Yazi, so she could only say ambiguously, "I married the king of Xixia later." Tianshan Tonglao sneered. "According to the rumors in Jianghu, Wu Yazi was killed by you and Ding Chuanxiu. How dare you mention his name now? At the moment of his death, he must be wondering why he was so blind, and only eldest senior sister was really good to him." Nonsense. When it came to Wu Yazi, Li Qiushui also changed her usual gentle tone and seemed a little flustered and exasperated. "Wu Yazi has high standards. How could he like a dwarf like you who will never grow up?" Song Qingshu next to her curled his lips, thinking, Lolita is such a beautiful word. Why did it become dwarf? Seeing that the two people were angry and scolding each other, Li Qinglu couldn't help but stretch out her finger to point at the waist of the man next to her. Can you persuade them?" Seeing that she was so careful, Song Qingshu felt pity for her. He gently grabbed her hand and said softly, "We are a family in the future. You don't have to be so reserved." Li Qinglu also felt that it was strange. The two obviously had the most intimate relationship, but they didn't talk much. Then Song Qingshu shouted at the two women who were quarreling on the other side. "Shut up. If you want to know who Wu Yazi likes, just ask him. Why are you quarreling here?" Chapter 1797. If you want to know who Wu Yazi likes, why don't you just ask him? Will there be any results if you keep fighting over this? Song Qingshu originally wanted to tell them that Wu Yazi liked Li Qiushui's younger sister, who was also Xiao Longnu's mother. But after thinking about it, if he told them directly, they would probably explode on the spot. After fighting for a lifetime, Wu Yazi loved someone else. This was Wu Yazi's fault, so he had to bear the consequences himself. Song Qingshu did not want to bear the two women's charaba field for him for no reason. "Brat, you probably don't know that Wu Yazi was killed by this bitch." Heaven Mountain Tonglau's eyes were filled with anger as she spoke. If not for her inferior skills, she would have already pounced on Li Qiushui and torn her to pieces. Li Qiushui snorted, but her expression did not look too good. When Ding Chuanxiu plotted against Wu Yazi, not only did she not stop it, but she also helped to add fuel to the fire. Although she was happy at first, she regretted it more and more as time went by. In the dead of night, she often thought of the fairy-like days the two of them had in the Jade Cave of Wuliang Mountain. Song Qingshu spoke at the right time. "Who said Wu Yazi is dead?" "What?" Heaven Mountain Tonglao suddenly turned around. "Brat, what did you say?" Vulture Palace had 36 caves and 72 islands under their control, so they naturally had their own unique intelligence network. If it was someone else who said this, she would have scoffed at it. But when she thought of the other person's status, he would not speak without thinking, let alone Heaven Mountain Tonglao. Even Li Qiushui looked at him in surprise. Although she knew what happened back then, and that Wu Yazi's corpse was probably already cold, she did not see his corpse back then, so she still held on to a sliver of hope. Song Qingshu replied. Wu Yazi was ambushed by Ding Chunxiu and was thrown off the cliff. His vigorous internal energy saved him. But even so, falling from such a high cliff still broke all his limbs. Fortunately, his eldest disciple Su Xinghe came to his rescue and saved his life. However, his entire body is paralyzed, and he is now a living dead man. Really? Tianshan Tonglao burst into tears of joy. But why haven't I heard any news about him all these years? Although Wu Yizi still has a strong inner force, he is paralyzed and can't fight. Su Xinghe and the others are useless. What if the news spreads and attracts Ding Chunxiu? Song Qingshu explained. Then why didn't he send someone to inform me? Tianshan Tongra said angrily. Ding Chunxiu is just a small fry. I can crush him with one hand. Although Ding Chunxiu had died in her hands not long ago, it was still a little unsatisfying to talk about it. Li Qiushui sighed faintly. We've been learning together for so many years. Don't you know Wu Yizi's character? Although he looks gentle on the surface, he's actually very arrogant. He was plotted against by his own disciple, and I was also involved. He's so arrogant that he wouldn't ask you for help. That's right, Song Qingshu added. As far as I know, he has been looking for a new disciple to help him clean up the mess. Suddenly, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao thought of something and couldn't help but say, no wonder Su Xinghe, that brat, has been playing the Go game all these years. I thought he was obsessed with the Go game. Now that I think about it, it's most likely that he is helping Wu Yizi choose a smart person. That's right, Song Qingshu thought. In the original work, Shuzhu solved the exquisite chess game by accident and obtained Wu Yazi's power. Then, he started his life as a cheat and met Meng Gu in Xixia. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but glance at Li Qinglu. Coincidentally, she was also looking at him secretly. When their eyes met, they both thought of their previous intimate relationship. Their hearts skipped a beat. No, I'm going to find him. Tianshan Tonglao suddenly said with excitement. Li Qiushui also stood up and said, I'm going too. Song Qingshu was speechless and said, You're almost 100 years old. You don't have to be so excited when you hear the news of your sweetheart. You're all injured and have lost your power. How are you going to see him? Yes. Li Qinglu was also anxious. Didn't the old princess take revenge for my father? Are you going to let Li Longzhua live happily here? Li Qiushui sighed faintly. I still have you to take revenge. Even if I kill Li Longzhua, I'll still be alone. It's meaningless to go back to the old days of the old princess. It's better to spend the rest of my life with Wu Yizi. Before she finished, Tianshan Tonglao couldn't help but scold. Bah, you're so shameless. How can Wu Yizi spend the rest of his life with a vicious woman like you? Li Qiushui sneered and said, If he doesn't spend the rest of his life with me, will he spend the rest of his life with you? Song Qingshu couldn't help but say, He's a man who has been paralyzed for many years. I don't know why you're fighting here. Does he still have the ability to spend the rest of his life with you? Li Qiushui was experienced. Although Tianshan Tonglao had no experience, she had lived for so many years. She immediately understood what he meant. The two of them scolded angrily. Shut up. Song Qingshu was also angry. You're really going against the heavens. Now you're all my captives. Before I finish my business here, no one can leave. Tianshan Tonglao snorted, ignored them, and ran out directly. Li Qiushui also used her wave-like subtle steps. Although she started a little later, she arrived first. She was about to disappear at the top of the stairs. Song Qingshu snorted coldly and directly reached out to their backs. The two of them suddenly felt an irresistible force. They lost their balance and were forcibly pulled back to the third floor underground. The two women fell back at the same time. If Song Qingshu hadn't immediately used a gentle force to dissolve the impact, they would have fallen very awkwardly. Dragon capturing skill? I didn't expect you to learn the lost skill. Tian Shantonglau's face was a little ugly, but her tone was mostly admiring. No, even dragon capturing skill can't have such great power. Li Qiushui frowned and said, it seems to have a shadow of Sun-Moon Sex star-sucking great skill. Song Qingshu secretly admired them. These two were indeed the top masters in the martial arts world. He said, this move comes from the green dragon absorbs water of the 18 dragons subduing palms. At the same time, some essence of star-sucking great skill was added. It's not the real dragon capturing skill. Of course, the perfect effect this time was mainly because the two women were not at their peak. They were probably only 10% to 30% of their peak, which was why they were so easily controlled. Li Qinglu, who was at the side, didn't know this. The old princess had always been a godlike existence in her heart. Tian Shantonglao was also the old princess's archenemy for many years. She was also an unfathomable devil, but she was so easily played by this man. Although Class 1 Hall got the news and knew that his martial arts were very good, she couldn't imagine that he was so good. Compared to Tian Shantonglao, who was a little straightforward, Li Qiushui could see through people's minds. She rolled her eyes and said, young master, as long as you lead us to Wu Yazi, I'll give you all the forces in Xixia. Song Qingshu curled his lips and said, you've been wiped out. What forces do you still have? Li Qiushui shook her head and said, as the saying goes, a centipede dies but never falls down. I've been running Xixia for decades and my forces are deeply rooted. How can I be wiped out so easily? It happened so suddenly that I didn't have time to mobilize all my forces. Just now, Lil Yangzhua took advantage of it. I originally planned to gather my old subordinates to counterattack after I recover from my injuries. Now that I think about it, it's all gone. I can't compare with Wu Yazi. Chapter 1798. Li Qiushui sneered, I don't have the capital. You make it sound like you're better than me. 36 caves and 72 islands rebelled, and Vulture Palace lost half of its strength. Now that you're not here, Vulture Palace is leaderless. When those island masters and cave masters attack Misty Peak, I'm afraid Vulture Palace will be lucky to have 10% of its strength left. Heaven Mountain Tonglao snorted, what can those people do in the 10,000 Immortals Assembly? Vulture Palace is easy to defend and hard to attack. How can they hurt it? Who doesn't know how to brag? Li Qiushui rolled her eyes. All right. Song Qingshu interrupted the two men's quarrel. In the end, the two of you don't have much bargaining power. How about this? Give me the forces of the Vulture Palace and the Western Xia country, and I'll tell you where Wu Yazi is now. Li Qiushui smiled. Young master, you're a little too greedy. In the past, any one of you would have been rich enough. But now, you know how much of your forces are not. Song Qingshu said calmly. Moreover, one of you is my captive, and the other was saved by me. This is not too much to ask, is it? All right. As long as you bring me to see Wu Yazi, I have no objections. Heaven Mountain Tonglao thought that she had had enough prestige in her life, and there was no point in continuing to stay in Misty Peak, lonely and cold. Moreover, she was a little disheartened now that her cultivation had weakened. Li Qiushui nodded. All right, but you have to promise us one thing. What is it? Song Qingshu was in a very good mood. The problem that had been troubling him before had been solved. Previously, it was easy to behead Li Liangzhua, but he had no foundation in Western Xia. If he killed Li Liangzhua, another Li Liangzhua would appear, and he would still be working for others. But now that he had these two as his foundation, things were different. He had enough confidence to control Western Xia. You have to come with us, Li Qiushui said. Song Qingshu furrowed his brows and said, no, the situation in the Western country is changing rapidly. I don't have the time. I can tell you where he is, and you can go and find him yourself. Are you afraid that I will lie to you? Li Qiushui sighed. If we go find him ourselves, why would we need to make this deal with you? Since he was saved by Su Xinghe back then, we can just directly interrogate Su Xinghe. Why would we need you? Then why? Song Qingshu was puzzled. Tianshan Tonglao said tacitly, "Have you forgotten that Wu Yazi has been paralyzed for many years? Of course, we don't want to see him crippled. Naturally, we want him to recover." Song Qingshu was speechless. "I'm not a doctor. Why are you looking for me? Isn't the Vulture Palace good at medicine? I heard that you can even replace a person's eyes." Whether it was the 9 revolving bear snake pill or the bone-breaking pill, they were the top elixirs and poisons in Jianghu. In the original novel, the Vulture Palace even helped Z to replace her eyes after she was blinded. Such medical skills were beyond this era. Tianshan Tonglao replied, "The Vulture Palace's medical skills are indeed good. But as far as I know, Su Xinghe has a disciple called Xuan Muhua, who is one of the 4 miracle doctors in Jianghu. After so many years, Su Xinghe must have asked miracle Dr. Shui to treat Wu Yazi's injuries. But Wu Yazi is still paralyzed. Obviously, even miracle Dr. Shui can't do anything. Vulture Palace probably can't save him either." Song Qingshu covered Li Qinglu with a blanket. As he changed into the clothes that Tianshan Tonglao brought, he said, "If you can't save him, how can I?" Li Qiushui sighed faintly. "You really don't know, young master. I heard that your meridians were broken during the lion slaughtering ceremony. After that, you went to the 4 miracle doctors for treatment. Unfortunately, the 4 miracle doctors couldn't do anything. Everyone thought that you were dead for sure. Unexpectedly, after a period of silence, you suddenly made a comeback. Not only did you recover from your injuries, but your martial arts also rose from third-rate to top-notch in Jianghu. So, if there's anyone in this world who can cure Wu Yazi, it's you." Song Qingshu was startled. Only then did he remember what had happened in the past. It wasn't easy for him to learn the Holy Scripture and change his fate. Thinking about it now, Wu Yazi's symptoms were similar to his. Of course, Wu Yazi's symptoms were more severe. And you also know the single sun finger. As far as I know, the single sun finger of Dali can bring the dead back to life. With these 2 methods, you can definitely cure Wu Yazi. Tianshan Tonglao had fought with Song Qingshu before, so she naturally knew that he knew the single sun finger. Song Qingshu answered, "Since you've heard of the single sun finger's ability to bring the dead back to life, you must know the side effects of doing this." Tianshan Tonglao nodded. "Yes. Many years ago, I met Reverend Eating once. I heard from him that using the single sun finger to save a person will make him extremely weak for 5 years, and he won't be able to use martial arts." Song Qingshu snorted. "Since you know, do you think I'll agree to it now?" His internal force was so strong that he had already solved the side effects of using the single sun finger. But he didn't need to tell them this, so he could use it to raise the price. Li Qiushui said softly, "Of course, we know that young master has sacrificed a lot, but we've also offered a lot of bargaining chips. You should know that the forces that got my help, plus the Vulture Palace, are equal to the power of half a country." "Half a country?" Song Qingshu smiled. "It will be more like half a month ago." At that time, Lilianzhua hadn't launched the coup. Li Qiushui smiled. "Of course, I know that our bargaining chips are not as valuable as before. But didn't I give you a granddaughter? Qinglu is recognized as the most beautiful woman in the entire Xixia country. She's unparalleled, and the princes of every country would scramble for her. She's a beauty that can cause the downfall of a country." "Old princess." Li Qinglu couldn't help but grumble coquettishly. At the same time, her mood was very complicated. She had been given away as a bargaining chip by her grandmother, and it was for an unrelated man. Wu Yazi had no blood relationship with her. At this time, Tianshan Tonglao also spoke. "If you think it's not enough, I have another apprentice. She's the holy maiden of the Vulture Palace. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also a princess. She's much more noble than my granddaughter, Li Qiushui." Li Qiushui suddenly became unhappy. She curled her lips disdainfully. "She's a descendant of the Chai family. How could she be a princess?" Song Qingshu's heart moved. They were most likely talking about Fu Mini. Of course, she mostly used the name Tang Sire in the Central Plains to travel in Jianghu. Tianshan Tonglao suddenly glared at Li Qiushui. After all, She's the descendant of our master. How dare you disrespect him? Li Qiushui's complexion changed slightly. She hurriedly said, "Of course I don't dare to disrespect him. I mean, what qualifications do you have to betroth her to someone else?" Listening to the conversation between the two, Song Qing-shu recalled the information he had received from Tang Sire. It seemed that Pan Lang, the founder of the free and unfettered faction, was indeed a descendant of Chai Rong. He had taught 3 talented apprentices, and at the same time, he had secretly made arrangements. Unfortunately, the infighting between his apprentices had completely wasted his efforts. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.